Chapter 6:14. Qin Wentian stared at the light in Moon's eyes as he involuntarily laughed. Seems like you are quite confident. Upon hearing his words, Moon's countenance dimmed. She lowered her head as though there was something weighing on her heart as she mumbled. But I'm afraid I won't be able to obtain a good result. After all, the strength of the divine inscriptions I'm proficient in is limited. Although I've been working hard to raise my proficiency in inscribing divine inscriptions, there's no way for me to make up for the disparity in divine inscriptions. I will definitely be left in the dust by Shenjing and Rongyan. Can I watch you inscribe divine inscriptions? Qin Wentian asked, his words causing Moon to smile as she nodded her head. Sure, if you want to learn my divine inscriptions, I will teach you. As for how much you can learn, that would depend on your own comprehension. Also, is she here to learn weaponsmithing as well? Moon pointed to Qing, as she asked. She's my younger sister, little Qing. She came here together with me. Qin Wentian smiled. As the two of them spoke, they had already arrived at Moon's weaponsmithing pavilion. Although the place wasn't too big, it had all the necessary materials, and there was even heat from the ground. This caused Moon to have an apologetic look on her face as she smiled at Qin Wentian. I've only been in the academy for a year, hence the conditions of my weaponsmithing pavilion are the worst. That Rongyan seems to be up to no good. His and Shenjing's weaponsmithing pavilion is better than mine, yet he arranged for you to learn from me. I feel that it's pretty good. If I learn from them, they would definitely not teach me divine inscriptions. Qin Wentian smiled radiantly. Staring at his smile, Moon also smiled. Your smile is so beautiful and your demeanor isn't bad either. I really don't understand why you want to be a weaponsmithing attendant. As she spoke, she had already started to prepare the materials needed for forging a 4th-ranked divine weapon. Forging a 4th-ranked divine weapon wasn't the same as forging a 1st-ranked or 2nd-ranked divine weapon. The requirements for the quality of the materials used were extremely strict. If not, even if ordinary divine weapons were imbued with powerful divine imprints, if the materials used weren't sturdy enough when clashing, they would be at a disadvantage and could easily break apart due to instability. The temperature of the flames needed to smelt high-grade crafting materials is extremely high. Fortunately, there is a heavenly flame below the crafting pavilion, which shrouds the entire crafting pavilion area of the academy. Even 5th-grade crafting materials can be smelted, let alone 4th-grade materials. Moon spoke to Qin Wentian. After which, she placed all the materials she had prepared into the central cauldron, and began to burn them. At the same time, she turned to Qin Wentian and said, "Help me retrieve the embryonic form of the axe." You want to forge a divine great axe? Qin Wentian laughed. Weaponsmithing was the same as the martial path. There were countless variations. Similarly, one had to gather materials, heat it, cast it, inscribe divine inscriptions, and finally sharpen it into a divine weapon. For a high-grade divine weapon, the requirements for the materials, combination, and divine inscriptions were all much higher. There couldn't be a single mistake, or it would be easy to end up with a defective weapon. You should already know these basic steps, right? Both the materials and forging process, practice makes perfect. After thousands and thousands of tempering, in addition to your powerful perception, you would be able to gradually perfect your weapon. The most important step is the inscribing of divine inscriptions. That is the step that determines the level of a weaponsmith's ability. Moon slowly explained. She continued to forge while chatting with Qin Wentian, guiding Qin Wentian on how to forge weapons. Qin Wentian stared at the beads of sweat on Moon's forehead as a smile appeared on his face. Shenjing and Rongyan had sent him to Moon's place, causing him to feel extremely happy. Moon was indeed more suitable to help him. After a period of time, the smelted materials were infused into the embryonic form of the great axe, allowing it to solidify before placing the embryonic form onto the forging stone. Moon then slammed her palm onto the embryonic form of the great axe, causing it to shatter, revealing an axe head that was scorched red. I'm going to inscribe divine inscriptions, watch carefully. A bright light flashed as a hatchet appeared in Moon's hands. One of her astral souls was a great axe, a forging-type astral soul. After which, the hatchet in Moon's hands chopped out, slamming onto the hatchet on the forging platform. Instantly, numerous runic inscriptions appeared, faintly exuding the will of the hatchet. Moon was extremely careful in her inscribing. She didn't even bother to chat with Qin Wentian. She was completely focused and used a total of 4 hours before she finished inscribing the divine inscriptions. Moon, your foundations in weaponsmithing are truly solid. Not only that, your inscribing ability is also very powerful. If there's a great teacher around, you would definitely have a bright future ahead of you. Qin Wentian spoke. Moon smiled sweetly, her face was covered in sweat. How can it be as simple as you think? The majority of powerful weaponsmiths are extremely arrogant, and the divine weapons I forge aren't of a high grade. It's very hard for me to attract the attention of others. Could it be that I can summon a Grandmaster level character to observe me forging? I can only wait and see if anyone would pay attention to me during the year-end examinations. Although there won't be any powerful Grandmaster level characters, there might be some weaponsmiths with good foresight. Qin Wentian shrugged. Do you mind if I use this hatchet? You. Moon blinked, glancing at the hatchet again. A mid-grade, 4th-rank divine weapon. Although it's a pity you can do it. Okay. Qin Wentian nodded. After which he walked forward as a hammer appeared in his hand, directly smashing down on the hatchet. The sound of metal colliding rang out as the divine inscriptions on the hatchet were directly flattened. This caused Moon to be stunned as she stared resentfully at Qin Wentian. Although it was only a mid-grade divine weapon, she was extremely poor and didn't have many materials to forge it. How could she bear to waste it like this? However, she could only hope that after Qin Wentian messed around once, he would understand the difficulty of weaponsmithing. Ding! Another light sound rang out as the hammerhead smashed into the hatchet. A resplendent light flashed as the hatchet exuded a terrifying sharpness. On the surface of the hatchet, an incomparably complex and exquisite divine inscriptions could be seen. This scene caused Moon to be dumbfounded. Her small hands covered her mouth as she stared at Qin Wentian. Her beautiful eyes didn't move as her brain short-circuited. This weaponsmithing technique caused her heart to pound unceasingly. You. Moon pointed at Qin Wentian. Upon seeing the mischievous smile in Qin Wentian's eyes, she suppressed her shock and pouted. You are so powerful, yet you still dare to tease me? Moon, can you help me with something? Qin Wentian spoke. Seeing the serious look on his face, Moon bewilderedly asked. Your weaponsmithing abilities are so high, what can I help you with? Although my divine inscriptions are powerful, I don't have much research on weaponsmithing. Right now, I need a large number of divine weapons, but I can't find a suitable place to do so. I hope you can help me. Qin Wentian spoke. Moon blinked before she nodded, sure. Being able to forge weapons together with such a powerful weaponsmith, how could Moon reject? Okay then. Moon, refine all the materials that can be used to forge divine weapons. I will forge them into divine weapons, and after that, you can go outside to help me trade for more materials, repeating the cycle. At the same time, remember to prepare more weapon embryos. Qin Wentian spoke. Moon instantly understood what Qin Wentian wanted to do. Given Qin Wentian's inscription speed, as long as the other steps and materials were sufficient, he would be able to forge a large number of weapons. And since he came to the Divine Weapon Academy, it was naturally because he knew that the Divine Weapon Academy had its own trading network that could provide all these for him. Weaponsmiths are all wealthy. For a weaponsmith like you, the amount of wealth you can create is simply unimaginable. Moon mumbled, her words causing Qin Wentian's eyes to flicker. He smiled. Right now, it's precisely because I'm poor that I need to forge weapons. Other than divine weapons, I also need to trade for some useful items. That's why I thought of this method. Fine, you will only be poor for a period of time. Given your standard, as long as you step into the celestial phenomenon realm, it wouldn't be too much of a problem for you to forge 5th-rank divine weapons. Moon felt somewhat jealous of this fellow in front of her. He was simply too powerful. As for why he couldn't forge 5th-rank divine weapons, it was most probably due to the limitations of his cultivation base. After all, the majority of 5th-rank divine inscriptions contained a true intent within them. Unless one was at the celestial phenomenon realm, it would be impossible for them to inscribe 5th-rank divine inscriptions. Moon, your foundation is so solid, you will also become a powerful weaponsmith in the future. Qin Wentian laughed. Moon shook her head. How can I be as impressive as you? You still have me. Qin Wentian winked at Moon, causing Moon's expression to stiffen. Her gaze towards Qin Wentian contained traces of nervousness and anticipation as her heart pounded wildly. I'll help you prepare the forging materials. Moon blushed, she didn't dare to meet Qin Wentian's gaze. After which, she walked away to prepare the forging materials for Qin Wentian. The two of them began to forge weapons in the weaponsmith pavilion, and after they were done, Moon would bring the divine weapons forged by Qin Wentian outside to trade. At the same time, she would borrow weapon embryos from her fellow apprentice brothers and sisters in the academy. This caused many to feel puzzled. What happened to Moon recently? She borrowed over 100 weapon embryos within 2 days. During these 2 days, Moon was completely exhausted. Other than running errands for Qin Wentian, Qin Wentian taught her peak-tier 4th-rank divine inscriptions as well as the method to inscribe divine inscriptions. Other than helping Qin Wentian, she would also mingle around in the weaponsmith pavilion to learn and attempt to inscribe divine inscriptions. Just like what Qin Wentian had expected, Moon's foundation was extremely solid. With his help, her improvement would be extremely quick. It wouldn't be long before she would be able to inscribe a peak-tier 4th-rank divine weapon. However, although she was tired, Moon had never been so happy before. Now that she had a peak-tier divine inscription, the method to forge weapons was even better, and Qin Wentian had given her a lot of materials, all of which could be used to forge peak-tier 4th-rank divine weapons. Occasionally, when she rested during the night, a smile would appear on Moon's face. Her hard work had finally paid off. She had met such a good person. Although he wanted her help, what Qin Wentian had given her wasn't something that could be compared to this little bit of help. She naturally understood this point in her heart. Towards Qin Wentian, she only felt heartfelt gratitude. 5 days later, Moon once again went out to help Qin Wentian exchange materials. When she passed by the weaponsmithing pagoda, she met Xinjing and Rongyan. Little Rascal was still as carefree and happy as ever, lying in Xinjing's embrace. Rongyan glanced at Moon as he smiled. Junior sister, is that apprentice weaponsmith obedient? Moon's face flashed with a bright light as she nodded. Junior sister, if you don't like him, you can just tell him to scram. I'm not that familiar with him anyway. Rongyan's lips curled up in contempt. As for Little Rascal, it was already impossible for him to return to Xinjing. Even Little Rascal himself couldn't bear to leave, right? Moon coldly glanced at Rongyan. She didn't say anything and directly walked away. Rongyan started. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he stared at her departing back. This yes-man actually dared to look at him in such a manner? However, the current Moon gave him a strange feeling. Her demeanor and confidence seemed to have increased, and she was even more beautiful than before. Moon returned to the weaponsmithing pavilion and saw that Qin Wentian was still forging weapons. She took out a handkerchief and wiped the sweat off his forehead, only to see Qin Wentian smiling at her. Moon blushed as she retracted her hand. I don't have any other intentions. Qin Wentian casually smiled. Staring at the smile in his deep eyes, Moon involuntarily felt a sense of inferiority. Although they had only been in contact for 5 days, she could sense that Qin Wentian was definitely an extraordinary character. If not, how could he have such powerful weaponsmithing techniques and such magnanimity? Even if he liked women, they would surely be those that were as dazzling as phoenixes, right? When she thought of this, Moon put down her previous thoughts and didn't think too much about it. She didn't dare to think too much about it either. She could only innocently smile. Tianwen, the year-end examination will begin in a few days. Can you watch me finish the examination before you leave? Qin Wentian glanced at Moon. He originally planned to leave tomorrow, but when he saw the innocent look in her eyes, he smiled and nodded his head. Sure. Thank you. Moon was somewhat agitated, as though she suddenly thought of something. She then continued. After the year-end examination ends, the battle on the sacred battle platform will begin soon. I heard that senior brother Wang Yunfei also wishes to fight against Qin Wentian. Senior brother Wang is so powerful. I wonder what kind of heaven-chosen Qin Wentian is. Is he as outstanding as senior brother Wang Yunfei? Regardless of weapon forging or combat, senior brother Wang Yunfei is so dazzling. Chapter 6:15. A strange smile involuntarily appeared on Qin Wentian's face when he heard Moon mentioning him, after which Moon smiled at him. What about you? You are so proficient in weaponsmithing, how's your combat prowess? This time around, many supreme geniuses will be participating in the sacred battle platform. Will you be going? Maybe, Qin Wentian shrugged and smiled. But before that, I still have to make a trip to the Flying Immortal Tower. What do you want exactly? Why are you preparing so many top-tier 4th-ranked divine weapons? Moon blinked. A few days ago, Qin Wentian asked her where he could trade for treasures in the sacred royal city. She told Qin Wentian the Flying Immortal Tower. The sacred royal city was the largest transaction ground in the royal sacred region. Not only that, there weren't just a single trading power, there were many of them. The Flying Immortal Tower was one of them. The mysterious Flying Immortal Tower had an incomparably deep foundation. As long as you could pay a sufficient price, the Flying Immortal Tower would be able to take out the item you wanted. Sky Demon Oracle Bone. Qin Wentian laughed in self-mockery. Moon's body trembled slightly as she stared at Qin Wentian in disbelief. If it was an ordinary person, they might not have heard of this item before. But as a weaponsmith, how could she not know about this legendary item? It was rumored that the Sky Demon Oracle Bone could be used to forge fiend god armors. It was a supreme treasure used to forge armors or defensive divine weapons. Even if you have many divine weapons, it's impossible for you to obtain the Sky Demon Oracle Bone. Moon spoke in a low voice. So what I want now is just some powder of the Sky Demon Oracle Bone. Qin Wentian shook his head with a bitter smile on his face. The Sky Demon Oracle Bone was a must-have item for cultivating the Fiend God Body Refinement Art. If he wanted to establish his Fiend God Body Refinement Art, he had to obtain this item first. I really don't know what you want to do. Moon's lips twitched. When are you going to the Flying Immortal Tower? I'll accompany you. No need, I can go there myself. You still have to prepare for the year-end examination. Qin Wentian smiled. Moon didn't insist and lightly nodded her head. The largest transaction center of the Royal Sacred Region was located in the Sacred Royal City, occupying an area of 1,000 miles. There were countless people coming and going, and celestial phenomenon ascendants could be seen everywhere. However, as the most mysterious and profound Flying Immortal Tower, there were not many people in this area. This was because the trading rules here were different from other places. Ordinary people preferred to go to the auction area or the trading area to try their luck, but the Flying Immortal Tower had its own independent trading rules. The Flying Immortal Inn was just a building. There were many pavilions on the left and right sides of the building, and there were many people stationed there. At this moment, a group of young men appeared below the Flying Immortal Inn. One of them waved his hand as a treasure flew into the inn. At the same time he spoke. I want to exchange for a pair of spears. They must be at the peak of the 4th level, and it would be best if the spears are inscribed with both offensive and defensive divine weapons. All right, come one day later. A voice rang out from within the Flying Immortal Tower. The transaction was completed. Following that, the second person threw a treasure into the ascending Immortal Tower. He wanted to exchange it for a rare top-grade Tier 4 pill. These people seemed to be from the Cold Slaughter sect. Someone in the surroundings murmured when he saw the group of youths. The person who wants to exchange for the spears is Shui Yunfan from the Cold Slaughter sect. He's extremely powerful and is a heaven chosen with some fame. Someone stated. There were countless geniuses in the sacred royal city, and it was unknown how many heroes were gathered here. Hence, there were some geniuses who had extraordinary strength, but they were still unknown to the public. Not far away, a group of figures could be seen walking over, exuding an extraordinary aura. Why is Wang Yunfei here as well? I heard that he planned to go to the sacred battle platform to join in the fun. I wonder how his preparations are going? Upon seeing the young man in the lead, the gazes of the crowd froze. Wang Yunfei's fame wasn't small. Not only was his talent in the martial Dao high, his proficiency in weaponsmithing was also outstanding. Not far away from Wang Yunfei, there was another ordinary-looking man. This man looked extremely ordinary, and because of the conical bamboo hat he wore, his countenance couldn't be seen clearly. However, his eyes underneath the bamboo hat gleamed with sharpness. This man was none other than Qin Wentian. He had met Wang Yunfei once before and was somewhat bewildered when he saw Wang Yunfei walking in front. However, he didn't think too much about it, and continued walking forward. Not long after, Wang Yunfei's group arrived at the Flying Immortal Tower. Shui Yunfan smiled at him. Wang Yunfei, you actually have something you lack. Who didn't know that weaponsmiths were wealthy? Wang Yunfei's proficiency in weaponsmithing was extraordinary. He definitely wouldn't lack ordinary treasures. Wang Yunfei faintly glanced at Shui Yunfan before shifting his gaze onto the Flying Immortal Tower. After which, he waved his hands as over 10 divine weapons flew out, landing on the Flying Immortal Tower. The divine weapons hummed as they shone resplendently, causing many to be startled. Wang Yunfei's actions were truly extraordinary. Change all of them to Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder. Wang Yunfei spoke. Come back 3 days later. A voice rang out from the Flying Immortal Tower. Wang Yunfei nodded. It wasn't strange for there to be Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder here. What armor do you want to forge? You actually need Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder? An expression of interest appeared on Shui Yunfan's face as he stared at Wang Yunfei. Qin Wentian, who was walking behind him, also had a strange expression on his face. He didn't expect that Wang Yunfei wanted the same thing as him. However, Wang Yunfei wanted to forge a weapon. Qin Wentian walked up and waved his hands. In an instant, terrifying whistling sounds rang out as numerous divine weapons gleamed with a dazzling light. These divine weapons were arranged in rows, causing the eyes of everyone to feel pain. The hearts of the people in the surroundings couldn't help but to tremble as they stared at the figure in the bamboo hat. Wasn't the actions of this man a little too tyrannical? Change all of them to Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder. Qin Wentian's low voice rang out. The Flying Immortal Tower fell silent for a moment. At the same time, Qin Wentian could clearly sense an extremely tyrannical perception sweeping past him. It should be a celestial phenomenon ascendant. They naturally had to clearly sense the appearance and aura of the person making the transaction, so that they wouldn't be falsely claimed by someone else when they came back next time. Please wait a moment. A voice rang out. It was as though there was no way to ascertain if they had enough Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder. At this moment, Wang Yunfei stared at Qin Wentian, his eyes gleaming with sharpness as he asked, Sir, why do you need so much Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder? Qin Wentian glanced at Wang Yunfei. He didn't reply. Wang Yunfei had no way to ascertain who Qin Wentian was, and he didn't dare to be too impudent. Seeing that Qin Wentian didn't reply, he didn't continue speaking. He was thinking in his heart, who would be able to take out so many divine weapons? Also, this person should only be a heavenly dipper sovereign. Come back 3 days later. An instant later, a voice rang out from the Flying Immortal Tower. Qin Wentian nodded his head as he turned and departed. However, he didn't leave this transaction ground. Instead, he chose to roam around, searching for other items he needed to trade. After all, he had enough divine weapons on him to trade. A few hours later, Qin Wentian returned to the Divine Weapon Academy. He continued forging weapons while at the same time guiding Moon. Although he didn't have a use for so many divine weapons, he could use them to exchange for Yuan meteor stones or other treasures. Who would dislike having too many? 3 days later, when Qin Wentian came back to collect the Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder, he discovered that Wang Yunfei and Shui Yunfan, whom he met before, were both here. When they saw him, their gazes turned to him as though they were waiting for him. This caused the eyes of Qin Wentian to gleam with sharpness. I'm here to collect the Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder. Qin Wentian spoke. Yes. A voice rang out from the Flying Immortal Tower. Qin Wentian slowly walked towards the window. After that, that person passed an interspatial ring to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian received it and inspected it, cursing silently in his heart. Wasn't the price of the Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder a little too high? There was actually so little of it. You can also come and collect it, but the price might be slightly lower. The Flying Immortal Tower will return a few divine weapons to you. A voice spoke to Wang Yunfei, causing Wang Yunfei's countenance to turn incredibly unsightly. The rules of the Flying Immortal Tower were like this. Usually, as long as you agreed, you would get the items you wanted. But if there was someone else who had even better items to exchange for the items, the Flying Immortal Tower would give priority to that person. If the items you offered were insufficient, the Flying Immortal Tower would return the items you offered. Back then, the number of divine weapons Qin Wentian took out was too much, hence, he was given priority over Wang Yunfei. Wait a minute. Just when Qin Wentian wanted to leave, Wang Yunfei, who was the owner of the Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder, called out to him. Qin Wentian halted his steps only to hear Wang Yunfei speaking. I'll pay double the price and exchange with you. How about it? Not exchanging. Qin Wentian faintly spoke as he lifted his foot and departed. A person beside Shui Yunfan had a sharp look in his eyes. He spoke to Shui Yunfan. This man's cultivation base is at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. A cold light flashed in Shui Yunfan's eyes as he laughed. Brother Wang, did you hear that? Wang Yunfei swept his gaze over to Shui Yunfan and the others. There were quite a few experts here. He instantly knew what they wanted to do. He coldly snorted. How could he allow himself to be used by Shui Yunfan? Their target was clearly Qin Wentian. They even brought people who could probe his cultivation base. Although he didn't care about Shui Yunfan, he wouldn't be so foolish as to help Shui Yunfan probe his cultivation base. And as expected, seeing that Wang Yunfei didn't move, Shui Yunfan and the others stepped out, directly surrounding Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian initially wanted to leave after obtaining the item. After all, according to the rules of the Flying Immortal Tower, as long as you obtain the item, you would no longer have anything to do with the Flying Immortal Tower. Right now, he was locked onto by Shui Yunfan and the others. With a sweep of his perception, he was able to determine the cultivation bases of his opponents. There were 5 to 6 8th level Heavenly Dipper Sovereigns, and 3 9th level Heavenly Dipper Sovereigns. Such a lineup was truly well prepared. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows as he coldly spoke. What do you guys want? Leave that interspatial ring behind. Shui Yunfan coldly spoke. He had personally seen Qin Wentian using so many divine weapons to exchange for it. The value of that interspatial ring was equivalent to over 100 top-grade 4th-ranked divine weapons. And for him, Shui Yunfan, he had only obtained a single top-grade 4th-ranked divine weapon 2 days ago. I can't do it. Qin Wentian faintly spoke, yet a terrifying aura gushed forth from Shui Yunfan. He stared at Qin Wentian with disdain as killing intent flashed in his eyes. Why must you do this? Killing intent flashed in Shui Yunfan's eyes. In the sacred royal city, there weren't many who would dare to openly rob others. After all, those who dared to come here for a transaction all had their own capabilities. Qin Wentian's identity was unknown. If it wasn't for the fact that the items on him were too valuable, the people from the Cold Slaughter sect wouldn't have dared to take such a risk. Abruptly, Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he soared up into the air. Shui Yunfan's countenance drastically changed as he blasted out with both his spears, akin to dragons of rage howling as a fearsome killing intent gushed forth. Qin Wentian pointed his finger in the air as a formless sword intent enveloped the entire space, terrifying to the extreme. In that instant, Shui Yunfan's entire body trembled. He felt as though he was in the midst of a terrifying killing intent. He involuntarily stared at Qin Wentian with trepidation in his eyes. Die. Qin Wentian's finger landed as a piercing sound rang out. Shui Yunfan's entire body was pierced through by a sharp sword as blood flowed from the center of his brows. His eyes were wide open as he died with everlasting regret. Chapter 6:16. Right now, the heaven-breaking finger was unleashed by Qin Wentian's will at the perfection boundary of the Tao of Swords, in addition to his own comprehension of the Tao of Swords. How terrifying was the might of this finger! Shui Yunfan, who was at the 8th level of Heavenly Dipper, was instantly killed. In that instant, those experts from the Cold Slaughter sect who were exuding tyrannical auras were all stunned. They stared at Qin Wentian with killing intent flickering in their eyes. This man was indeed at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, yet his combat prowess was actually so tyrannical. That finger strike of his was so tyrannical that it was completely unreasonable, instantly killing Shui Yunfan. Such a domineering aura caused the experts from the Cold Slaughter sect to pause momentarily. They were all invited here by Shui Yunfan, and a Heavenly Dipper sovereign who possessed hundreds of top-tier 4th-ranked divine weapons. It was extremely difficult for them to not be moved. However, this man didn't seem to be a pushover. I have no intention of killing anyone. If you don't want to die, don't antagonize me. Qin Wentian spoke. He wore the bamboo hat so that he wouldn't attract attention. Since Shui Yunfan dared to rob the divine weapons, he would kill him first to deter the others. If these people were stubborn, he could only kill them. As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian turned and departed. His steps were light and agile, his face hidden under the bamboo hat couldn't be seen. The spectators in the surroundings all stared at the scene that just happened, after which, they turned their gazes onto the experts from the Cold Slaughter sect. There were so many of them, yet they were all intimidated by a mere 7th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. What should we do? An expert from the Cold Slaughter sect asked. Forget it, since this man is so confident, he must be someone extraordinary. That divine weapon is a hot potato. A 9th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign replied. An expert at the side narrowed his eyes as he stared at the disappearing silhouette of Qin Wentian. What a pity. Although Qin Wentian had killed Shui Yunfan in a single strike, they didn't think that Qin Wentian would be able to fight against so many of them. They were only worried that Qin Wentian would dare to come to the Flying Immortal Tower to conduct a transaction in front of so many people. Furthermore, killing Shui Yunfan was a decisive and ruthless move. It was better not to take any risks. In a city like the Saint Royal City, being cautious was the #1 rule of survival. Wang Yunfei cast a deep glance at Qin Wentian, but he didn't have any thoughts of snatching it away. He was only thinking in his heart that only a small amount of the Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder was needed to forge a supremely powerful defensive divine weapon, yet this person wanted too much. Could it be that he wanted to forge a defensive divine weapon in batches? Qin Wentian naturally didn't want to forge a defensive divine weapon. If he succeeded in cultivating the Fiend God Body Refinement realm, his physique would be even more terrifying than divine weapons. After returning to the resting area that Moon had arranged for him, Qin Wentian closed his eyes as his entire body shone with a dazzling astral light. He executed the incantation and stretched his palms out, grabbing onto the Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder. After which, his palms transformed into a fearsome vortex, directly absorbing the Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder into his body. An intense pain gushed forth from his arms. Qin Wentian gritted his teeth and endured it. This was only the entry level of this incantation. In the future, this incantation would be even more tyrannical. The Sky Demon Oracle Bone was rumored to be a supreme defensive divine weapon. Even its powder could be used to forge a supremely powerful defensive divine weapon. One could very well imagine how tough it was. However, Qin Wentian actually wanted to use his flesh and blood to refine it into his body. From this, one could very well imagine how tyrannical it was. Qin Wentian was busy with his cultivation, while the people of the Divine Weapon Academy were busy with the forging of divine weapons. During these few days, Moon immersed herself in the forging of divine weapons, doing her best to digest everything Qin Wentian taught her. She was doing her best to prepare for the year-end examinations. Unknowingly, the year-end examinations of the Divine Weapon Academy had finally arrived. Today, the atmosphere of the Divine Weapon Academy was extremely lively. In the public square of the Divine Weapon Academy, the surroundings of the weaponsmithing pagoda were filled with students. Above the public square, there was a spectator stand where the elders of the academy sat, observing the year-end examinations of the students. Qin Wentian, Qing'er and Moon were preparing to set off. Moon smiled at Qin Wentian. Thank you for watching me participate in the year-end examinations. It's not like I'm busy. Qin Wentian shrugged. Future Grandmaster Weaponsmith, in the future if I need help with anything, don't reject me. Naturally, as long as you need my help, I can continue forging weapons for you without any compensation. Moon smiled sweetly. The her now was indeed more confident. Even her demeanor was different from before. Qin Wentian propped up his chin as he stared at Moon, causing her to avert her gaze. However, Qin Wentian only smiled. Moon, I discovered that you are truly very beautiful. If you dress yourself up, you might even look prettier compared to Xinjing. Moon blushed as she replied, Xinjing is so elegant. How can I be compared to her? She is elegant. You are pure and innocent. It's just that I thought you needed to dress yourself up properly. That way, coupled with your proficiency in weaponsmithing, you would be like a crane in a flock of chickens. Qin Wentian spoke. Do you really think so? Moon's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian naturally nodded his head. In that case, wait for me. Moon smiled sweetly as she ran towards her room. Qin Wentian waited for an entire hour before Moon walked out with her head lowered. Qin Wentian stared at Moon in bewilderment. Right now, she was no longer wearing that simple and unadorned robe, and had changed into a pure white dress. Her fair neck and exquisite collarbones were revealed, and her jet-black hair flowed gracefully in front of her collarbones, exuding a sense of spirituality and purity. Moon shyly inclined her head, and upon seeing Qin Wentian staring at her, her face grew even redder. However, she soon heard Qin Wentian laughing. Seems like my judgment isn't bad. If you walk out like this, in addition to your proficiency in weaponsmithing, you will definitely become an influential character in this examination. Let's go. Moon nodded her head, and walked out together with Qin Wentian. When they arrived at the public square of the Divine Weapon Academy, several gazes instantly landed on Moon, causing the expressions on the faces of many to turn extremely fascinating. Is that Moon? Someone asked in disbelief. Be more confident. Qin Wentian laughed in a low voice when he saw that Moon was feeling a little awkward. Moon nodded her head, and inclined her head as she walked forward gracefully. Her ample bosom seemed to be on the verge of bursting out, causing the eyes of many male students to flash with a strange light. Moon. A shocked voice rang out. Rong Yen stared at Moon and Qin Wentian as a look of bewilderment flashed in his eyes. A few days ago, he already felt that Moon seemed to have changed. But he didn't expect that the cowardly and low-profile Moon would actually become so outstanding. He didn't even dare to believe his own eyes. Moon nodded lightly to Rong Yen before shifting her gaze onto the weaponsmithing pagoda. She didn't have a favorable impression of Rong Yen. Moon, why are you so late? The examination has already started, and there are already many people forging weapons in the pagoda. Rong Yen walked towards Moon as he smiled. This scene caused Xinjing, who was originally standing beside him, to frown as a look of unhappiness flashed in her eyes. Don't worry, today is the day of the examination. Moon replied in a light voice. The examination at the end of the year was actually a chance for the students of the Divine Weapon Academy to display themselves. All fourth-ranked inscriptionists had the opportunity to go up and forge weapons. There would be people in the academy who would record your proficiency in weaponsmithing and decide how much resources you would be given. In addition, some of the more outstanding ones would even be taken in as disciples by the elders of the academy. Moon, your proficiency in weaponsmithing is also not bad. Let's wait for the next batch. I heard that Wang Yunfei is preparing to go up. Moon didn't reply to the sudden change in Rong Yan's attitude, but Qin Wentian laughed. Moon, I feel the same way as well. Moon glanced at Qin Wentian, understanding that he wanted her to attract the attention of more people. After all, there would be many elders paying attention to Wang Yunfei's weaponsmithing. Being in the same batch as Qin Wentian would also attract a lot of attention. Okay. Moon smiled at Qin Wentian, causing Rong Yen, who was at the side, to be in a daze. He involuntarily glanced at Qin Wentian as his countenance turned much colder. Moon, is this apprentice I gifted to you obedient? An unhappy expression flashed on Moon's face. She coldly glanced at Rong Yen. Rong Yen, have you always been so disrespectful? Before this, Rong Yan's tone when he spoke to her had always been arrogant and cold. But right now, his tone clearly contained the intent to humiliate Qin Wentian. What did he mean by the apprentice he gifted to her? Was Qin Wentian an object? Rong Yen frowned when he saw the cold look in Moon's eyes. Being questioned like this, his countenance naturally turned incredibly ugly. In addition, what sort of character was he, Rong Yen? He had always been extremely arrogant. Now that he treated Moon with respect, Moon actually berated him for the sake of Qin Wentian? Seeking trouble for yourself. A mocking voice drifted over. Shenjing turned her gaze over, sweeping a glance at Rong Yen before turning to Moon. Do you really think you can transform into a phoenix just by dressing up a little? Given your level of weaponsmithing, it's best if you don't embarrass yourself. Qin Wentian calmly glanced at Shenjing before turning to little rascal in her arms. Isn't it about time to return that little fellow to me? Shenjing stared at Qin Wentian in bewilderment. A mocking look could be seen in her eyes. She gently stroked little rascal's snow-white skin as she mocked. A person like you isn't worthy of it. Why don't you ask it if it's willing to follow you? Qin Wentian laughed, glaring at little rascal. Why are you still not coming back? Little rascal popped its head out and with a ferocious leap, pounced onto Qin Wentian. Shenjing's countenance turned cold as she coldly spoke. Return it to me. Qin Wentian ignored her. Rong Yen stared at Qin Wentian as a look of disdain flickered in his eyes. I want you to hand it over. Scram. Qin Wentian glanced at Rong Yen as a cold light flickered in his eyes, causing Rong Yan's heart to tremble violently. He stared at Qin Wentian. This place is the Divine Weapon Academy, the one who should scram is you. That's right, scram. Shenjing similarly walked up, staring at Qin Wentian. She didn't expect that she would be betrayed by that little fellow. I will leave after this round of the weaponsmithing competition ends. Qin Wentian faintly spoke. Upon hearing his words, Moon coldly stared at Rong Yen and Shenjing. Qin Wentian stayed behind because he wanted to watch her take the test. Yet now he was being expelled. At this moment, a series of exclamations rang out. So it turned out that this round had ended. Wang Feiyan slowly walked up, arriving at the top of the pagoda, causing the crowd to exclaim in shock. Give me a little more time. Moon stared at Qin Wentian with an apologetic look in her eyes. After which, her silhouette flickered as she flew towards the top of the pagoda. This time around, the low-profile Moon actually directly ascended to the top of the pagoda, appearing beside Wang Yunfei. This scene caused many to furrow their brows. Didn't this Moon have too little self-awareness? However, at this moment, Moon's long dress fluttered in the wind, exuding an extraordinary aura. Her gaze turned over, staring at Rong Yen and Shenjing below as she icily spoke. Rong Yen, Shenjing, you two have insulted my friends. For the weaponsmithing examination this time around, let us compete. If my Moon's proficiency in weaponsmithing is inferior to yours, I will vanish from the Divine Weapon Academy. Chapter 6:17. Moon's voice caused the public square of the Divine Weapon Academy to fall silent. Many who recognized Moon all had strange expressions on their faces. A few days ago, Moon's behavior in the academy was already somewhat strange. And now, she even said such arrogant words. Rong Yen and Shenjing were both extremely famous in the Divine Weapon Academy. Both of them could forge top-tier 4th-ranked divine weapons, and their proficiency in weaponsmithing was extraordinary. This Moon actually issued a challenge to Shenjing and Rong Yen. It seemed that it was for the sake of her friend. Rong Yen and Shenjing both felt bewildered. Shenjing's beautiful eyes flashed with coldness as she stared at Qin Wentian. It's best if you don't leave. After speaking, her silhouette soared up into the air as her violet dress fluttered in the wind. Her figure was graceful and beautiful, and she also appeared at the top level of the pagoda. She then spoke to Moon. You don't know what's good for you. After which, she turned to Wang Yunfei as she smiled and nodded. Senior. MHM. Wang Yunfei nodded. This Shenjing's proficiency in weaponsmithing was extraordinary, and her background wasn't bad as well. In addition to her beauty, Wang Yunfei did have a favorable impression of her. However, Moon was a girl he had never paid attention to before. Regardless of demeanor or beauty, she wasn't in any way inferior to Shenjing. Especially at this moment, the competitive intent radiating from her, and the coldness in her clear eyes made her even more attractive. Arrogant. Rong Yan's countenance grew incredibly unsightly as he stared at Qin Wentian. If you lose, let alone humiliating him, he might not even be able to walk out of the Divine Weapon Academy alive today. After speaking, He also soared up into the air, descending to the last seat at the top level of the pagoda. The 4 seats at the top level were all occupied by the 4 of them. The others also ascended the pagoda, all of them prepared to put on a good performance. This battle would surely attract the attention of many elders in the academy. Scorching heat permeated the air, and the people on the top level all took out the forging materials they had prepared beforehand. After which, they began to forge their weapons in the special area of the pagoda. The flames emanating from the equipment refining pagoda are connected to all the refining positions. Furthermore, they can control the temperature of the flames. This is amazing. Qin Wentian's eyes were emotionless as he quietly watched the people on the refining pagoda start to refine their weapons. Rong Yan and Shen Jing were not polite to him, but in fact, Qin Wentian did not care about them at all. They were just 2 passers-by, he did not care about them at all. As for Moon, she truly had a kind heart. Towards such a person, he wouldn't be stingy with helping them out. In any case, Moon herself was also extremely outstanding. Tomorrow would be the day of his arranged battle with Disher. Maybe after today, he would never be able to meet Moon again. Qin Wentian silently admired Moon's forging. Each and every movement, each and every step, although they weren't that breathtaking, they were extremely solid. In this aspect, even he, Qin Wentian, felt ashamed of his own inferiority. Although his divine inscriptions were powerful, in other aspects he truly couldn't be compared to Moon. Although Moon's performance wasn't that breathtaking, Qin Wentian believed that as long as the weaponsmiths of the academy weren't blind, they would be able to tell that Moon was a talent worth nurturing. This year's examination was at the end of the year. The seniors of the Divine Weapon Academy were spectating, and there would be people specially recording their forging process. Nobody dared to be careless, as this would determine what resources they would be able to obtain in the coming year. Everyone put their all into forging their own divine weapons, with no time to care about anything else. Wang Yunfei's side attracted the most gazes. He was forging a divine robe that was extremely thin. This type of divine weapon was exceedingly difficult to forge. One had to inscribe powerful defensive divine inscriptions on it to weaken the attacks of others. Wang Yunfei actually chose to forge such a divine weapon under such circumstances. From this, one could see how confident he was. Many of the weaponsmiths in the spectator stands had smiles on their faces. However, Wang Yunfei already had a master, and they had no hope of accepting him as a disciple. Shen Jing was forging a divine ruler. Rong Yan was forging a long spear, and Moon seemed to be forging a pair of divine feathers. This little doll's guts isn't small. Some of the weaponsmiths in the spectator stands stared at Moon. Forging a pair of divine feathers was definitely an extremely daring attempt. One must know that there was a time limit for the year-end examination. The examinees had to complete the forging of their divine weapons within the specified time limit. It was impossible for them to have unlimited time. It's time to inscribe the divine inscriptions. As long as this segment isn't messed up, Moon will defeat Shenjing and Rong Yan without any suspense. Qin Wentian laughed. The divine inscription Moon was preparing to inscribe was one of the divine inscriptions he taught her. It was a combination of offense and defense, as well as speed. It was exceedingly complex, and once it was inscribed, it would completely surpass Shenjing and Rong Yan. Moon's fingers were slightly longer, and her fair hands were extremely beautiful to look at. Not only that, her movements were extremely stable. She was completely focused on inscribing divine inscriptions, her heart as calm as still water. Right now, what she was thinking about wasn't how she would be valued by the elders, or how she would be able to obtain the best resources in the academy. Rather, she was thinking about defeating Shenjing and Rong Yan, allowing Qin Wentian to gain respect. Time slowly flowed by, and as a beam of light flashed, Wang Yunfei was the first to complete the forging of his divine weapon, causing many to nod their heads in approval. After Wang Yunfei completed his forging, he turned his gaze onto Moon and Shenjing. Very swiftly, his gaze froze. The divine inscriptions Moon was inscribing were extraordinary, and the materials she used were all of the highest quality. Clearly, she was aiming to forge a peak tier 4th rank divine weapon. Wang Yunfei's countenance grew increasingly heavy. The beautiful eyes of Moon, who was clad in white, were filled with calmness. Sweat could be seen on her fair neck and collarbone, but that expression of concentration actually caused Wang Yunfei's heart to stir. Glancing at Shenjing again, there was a look of frustration in her eyes, as though she wasn't too satisfied with the divine weapon she forged. That arrogant look on her face was akin to a princess, completely different from Moon's demeanor. However, at this moment, Wang Yunfei discovered that Moon, whom he had never paid attention to before, actually moved his heart even more compared to Shenjing. On top of the weaponsmithing pagoda, more and more people finished their forging. For a period of time, the entire pagoda was filled with the sharpness of divine weapons, as the humming sounds of weapons resonated unceasingly. It's done. At this moment, Rong Yan heaved a sigh of relief. His long spear had been successfully forged. I'm done as well, Shenjing faintly spoke. Her fire-colored ruler had been completed. The two of them glanced over at Moon, only to see her waiting for her divine weapon to cool down. Her beautiful wings exuded a sense of beauty. Shenjing sarcastically spoke. Divine weapons aren't useful just because they look good. After speaking, she took out her own divine weapon and infused her astral energy into it. Instantly, terrifying flames gushed forth, resembling the roar of a flaming ferocious bird, terrifying to the extreme. A top-grade 4th-ranked divine weapon. Not only that, it can be considered not bad among the top-grade ones, Wang Yunfei faintly stated. Many thanks, senior. Shenjing elegantly smiled. Wang Yunfei lightly nodded his head. Rong Yan also infused his astral energy into his long spear, causing a terrifying sharpness to erupt forth from it. It was also a top-grade 4th-ranked divine weapon, comparable to Shenjing's. The two of them turned their gazes onto Moon only to see her waving her hands as a pair of wings appeared on her back. The pure white light radiating from the wings was so resplendent, slowly flapping. At this moment, Moon was like an angel, pure and flawless. Busy. The wings fluttered as a terrifying silvery light erupted forth, resembling a silver-white ferocious bird soaring up into the skies, exuding a fearsome might that caused the hearts of Shenjing and Rong Yan to tremble. In the next instant, Moon's body floated up into the air. The pure white wings radiated a brilliant light as she stared at the dumbfounded Shenjing and Rong Yan. There was no need to say anything else. How can this be possible? Rong Yan's countenance was incredibly ugly to behold. The divine weapon forged by junior sister Moon is a peak tier 4th-ranked one. Not only that, it has both offense and defense, and it also has an advantage in speed. It's far from something your divine weapon can compare to. Wang Yunfei faintly spoke. At this moment, Rong Yan stared at that angelic silhouette, silently cursing himself for being blind in the past. Why didn't he pursue such a girl? Shenjing's countenance alternated between shades of green and white. She didn't expect things to turn out like this. Shenjing, if you apologize to my friend together with Rong Yan, I can forget about this matter. Moon coldly spoke. Shenjing was still as arrogant as ever. You want me to apologize to such a lowly person? Dream on. Moon, even if your weaponsmithing abilities aren't bad, you are only fit to be friends with such a person. Fine, from now onwards, scram out of the Divine Weapon Academy. Moon's countenance was ice cold. You. Shenjing stared at Moon. The two beauties stared at each other. Wang Yunfei laughed when he saw this scene. Junior sister Moon, your weaponsmithing abilities are extraordinary. Later on, I will bring you to meet Master and beg him to accept you as a disciple. How about that? Moon's beautiful eyes flashed with surprise. Wang Yunfei's senior brother was a major character in the Divine Weapon Academy. A look of joy flashed in her eyes as she turned to Wang Yunfei. Many thanks, senior brother. No worries. Wang Yunfei smiled in a carefree manner. For such an outstanding woman like Moon, he naturally had some thoughts in his heart. Junior sister Shenjing, what grudge do you have with junior sister Moon? Why must you act like this? Why don't I help you resolve it? Wang Yunfei spoke to Shenjing. Not long ago, Shenjing was still filled with jealousy and anger, but now when she heard Wang Yunfei's words, she felt joy in her heart. She then replied, a few days ago, I met a person who just arrived in the sacred royal city. He knew that Rong Yan and I are students of the Divine Weapon Academy and hence, he intentionally got close to us. After that, he begged us to recommend him to the Divine Weapon Academy. We recommended him to be Moon's apprentice, but who would have thought that this person didn't know what's good for him? Now, I wonder if he and Moon have developed feelings for each other because of their weaponsmithing, causing him to be so arrogant. Wang Yunfei understood in his heart. He didn't expect it to be because of a mere apprentice. He couldn't help but to smile. Junior sister Moon, I can introduce many outstanding apprentices to you. Senior brother, things aren't like what Xinjing said. Xinjing and Rongyan didn't respect others. Moon spoke. How about this? I'll apologize to you on behalf of junior sister Xinjing. After all, we are fellow apprentice sisters. Don't let such a small matter affect the harmony between us. Wang Yunfei spoke. Moon felt somewhat unhappy in her heart when she heard Wang Yunfei saying that it was a small matter. However, she still respected this genius senior brother of hers. Hence, she added, this matter has nothing to do with senior brother. There's no need for senior brother to apologize. Wang Yunfei had a satisfied smile on his face when he heard this. That settles it then. I will recommend some outstanding apprentice weapons to junior sister. Junior sister Moon, please don't ruin the harmony between us for the sake of a mere apprentice weapon. After all, an apprentice weapon is just an apprentice weapon. It is destined that he will never be one of us. Moon started again. She stared at Wang Yunfei, feeling somewhat disappointed. Her gaze shifted downwards as her beautiful eyes froze. She saw Qin Wentian carrying little rascal in his arms as he turned to leave. Not us. Wang Yunfei, I didn't expect you to be such a person as well. Moon's countenance turned completely cold. After which she walked downwards as she called out, Tianwen. Qin Wentian turned his head and smiled at Moon. Moon, your examination has already ended. It's time for me to leave. Don't be unhappy because of me. Hypocrite. Xinjing couldn't help but coldly snort when she saw Wang Yunfei's countenance turning incredibly ugly. Seems like the two of them are indeed in cahoots. Rongyan didn't conceal his voice at all, causing everyone in the public square to hear it clearly. What status did Wang Yunfei have in the academy? Yet today, he was actually being criticized by others. His gaze turned to Qin Wentian and Moon as he icily spoke. A mere apprentice. What kind of place do you take my Divine Weapon Academy for? Do you think you can come and go as you please? Although his temper wasn't bad, and earlier he wanted to resolve the conflict between Moon and Xinjing in front of everyone, wanting to gain a favorable impression from both of them. However, because of a mere apprentice, Moon actually fell out with him. He, Wang Yunfei, was actually inferior to a mere apprentice? Qin Wentian inclined his head, calmly glancing at Wang Yunfei. He initially wanted to quietly spectate this examination, but who would have thought that such a huge commotion would occur? He lifted his foot and stepped out, causing rumbling sounds to echo out. On the public square, divine inscriptions flashed as they extended outwards unceasingly. Qin Wentian continued stepping out, and an instant later, the incomparably exquisite divine inscriptions on the ground radiated a terrifying light as the roars of terrifying ferocious beasts could be heard. This terror appeared on the faces of the crowd. How could this be possible? One divine inscription per step? Not only that, they were all powerful fourth-ranked divine inscriptions. You aren't qualified to speak to me like this. Qin Wentian stared straight at Wang Yunfei. Chapter 618. Qin Wentian originally didn't have any plans to stay here for long. It was only because of Moon that he decided to stay here for 2 more days. He initially wanted to leave quietly after the weaponsmithing examination was over. Being able to see Moon rise to fame in the academy, this trip could already be considered perfect. However, reality was beyond his expectations. He didn't intend to bicker with Rongyan and Xinjing, nor did he wish to disrupt Moon's life in the Divine Weapon Academy. Yet there were some things that forced their way to her. Since this was the case, he had no choice but to smooth things over. Hence, he displayed his extraordinary attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions. After which, the current situation was created. The gazes of those who were focused on Wang Yunfei and the treasured pagoda all landed on him. Or more accurately, they were staring at the divine inscriptions beneath his feet. Every step he took was a fourth-rank divine inscription. Such a terrifying level of attainment in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions was sufficient to cause those so-called geniuses of the Divine Weapon Academy to feel despair. Would they be able to reach such a level? Even Wang Yunfei wouldn't be able to reach such a terrifying level, right? Not only that, the few steps Qin Wentian took were all aimed at Wang Yunfei, the most dazzling genius of the Divine Weapon Academy. Wang Yunfei, you are not qualified to speak to me in this manner. A cold voice, in addition to that transcendent attainment in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, was undoubtedly the most effective reply to Wang Yunfei's words. Wang Yunfei vented his anger on Qin Wentian because of Moon's attitude. Hence, Qin Wentian used the most direct method to retaliate. Could Wang Yunfei do it? He couldn't. Hence, the spectators saw that Wang Yunfei's usually calm countenance had turned ashen. At this moment, the domineering manner Qin Wentian displayed caused even Moon to be stunned. During the few days she interacted with Qin Wentian was magnanimous, cheerful, and always had a smile on his face, giving off a misconception that he didn't care about anything. This was the first time she saw such a domineering and tyrannical side of Qin Wentian, completely different from when he faced Shen Jing and Rong Yan. At this instant, Qin Wentian didn't conceal his sharpness at all. It was as though as long as he willed it, he could become the focal point. Even Wang Yunfei paled in comparison to him. This caused Moon's heart to tremble. Who was this fellow exactly? Among the crowd, the ones with the most intense fluctuations in their hearts were none other than Rong Yan and Shen Jing. Right now, the sharpness radiating from Qin Wentian caused their hearts to tremble. They had actually arranged for Qin Wentian to be their apprentice. If that was the extent of it, it was still fine. But they even forcefully pushed Qin Wentian to Moon, making him her apprentice. Shen Jing and Rong Yan weren't fools. When they saw Qin Wentian's strength as well as Moon's protection of him, how could they still not understand how Moon managed to complete her transformation? All of these were given to Moon by them. Qin Wentian was helping her. What was even more ridiculous was that they even tried to make things difficult for Qin Wentian. But now that things had come to this, there was no turning back. Qin Wentian then shifted his gaze onto Rong Yan and Shen Jing. His ice-cold gaze was like a sharp sword, causing the hearts of the two of them to tremble. Not everyone is as hypocritical as the two of you. Moon has a kind heart. Although I was gifted to Moon by the two of you using my identity as an apprentice, Moon didn't show any disrespect towards me. On the contrary, she allowed me to observe her forging. Hence I treated her as a friend. As for the two of you, I've never shown any malice towards you, but the expressions on your faces are filled with arrogance and disdain. Even your words contain hints of humiliation. Qin Wentian coldly continued. Looking at that arrogant countenance of yours, those who don't know would think that you two are very strong. You are merely ordinary students. I really don't know where the arrogance written on your faces comes from. Do you know why I don't want to bicker with you two? Because you are not worthy. His words were like heavy hammers smashing into the hearts of Rong Yan and Shen Jing, causing their countenances to turn pale. That's right, from the start to the end, Qin Wentian didn't want to bicker with them. It wasn't because he didn't have a temper, but rather, he felt that they were not worthy. How arrogant were these words? However, Qin Wentian did indeed have the confidence to back it up. I know who you are. At this moment, Wang Yunfei stared at Qin Wentian as he coldly spoke. Qin Wentian inclined his head, only to see Wang Yunfei coldly laughing. 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. As well as your aura. I won't be wrong. In the Flying Immortal Tower, you took out hundreds of top-tier 4th-ranked divine weapons in exchange for the Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder, and even killed Shui Yunfan of the Cold Slaughter Sect. Who would have thought that you were actually hiding in my Divine Weapon Academy? Wang Yunfei's words once again caused a huge wave of commotion. Even the elders in the spectator stands were moved. Taking out hundreds of top-tier 4th-ranked divine weapons? How strong was the weaponsmithing prowess of this man? Just by looking at his terrifying attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, one could already imagine how easy it would be for him to forge a top-tier 4th-ranked divine weapon. Not only that, why did Qin Wentian use so many divine weapons to exchange for the Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder at the Flying Immortal Tower? So what if I know? Qin Wentian coldly spoke to Wang Yunfei. You came to my Divine Weapon Academy because you have no way to forge weapons by yourself. Hence, you needed to borrow the strength of the Divine Weapon Academy. Moon is precisely the person who helped you forge weapons. You used the resources of my Divine Weapon Academy to forge divine weapons to exchange for the Sky Demon Oracle Bone Powder. And now, you even dared to act so arrogantly here. Do you think that you have extraordinary talent in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions? As expected of a heaven chosen of the Divine Weapon Academy, Wang Yunfei very quickly deduced many things. Qin Wentian came to the Divine Weapon Academy because he wanted to borrow the strength of the Flying Immortal Tower. Also, this man didn't have any strong backing to rely on, which was why he wore a conical bamboo hat to conceal his identity. Since this was the case, how could they allow him to leave so easily today? Wang Yunfei, aren't your words too shameless? The resources he used were all my own. When did I use the Academy's resources? In the past, Moon had always idolized Wang Yunfei. But right now, she was completely disappointed. Even if he was still the most outstanding genius in the Heavenly Dipper realm of the Divine Weapon Academy. Moon. Qin Wentian called out. Moon glanced at Qin Wentian only to see Qin Wentian smiling. There's no need to fight, because it's completely meaningless. Moon's countenance stiffened. An intense sense of disappointment could be seen in her eyes. Although she had performed outstandingly, her status in the academy couldn't be compared to Wang Yunfei, whose achievements in the path of cultivation as well as his talent in weaponsmithing. If not, she would be able to help Qin Wentian. Wang Yunfei, no matter what excuse you find, you are still coveting the treasures in my possession. However, are you even worthy? Qin Wentian sarcastically spoke again. Seniors of the Divine Weapon Academy, what do you all have to say about this matter? Such an arrogant voice caused the hearts of many students to tremble. This man was too arrogant, he basically didn't care about Wang Yunfei at all. Your weaponsmithing prowess is extraordinary. Are you willing to join our Divine Weapon Academy? An elder asked. I don't like to be restricted. I can only let down seniors' kindness. Qin Wentian rejected without any hesitation, causing Moon to feel even more nervous. Since you are not a student of our academy, we the elders naturally won't interfere in the grudge between you and Wang Yunfei. You can settle it yourself. That elder spoke. I'm sure everyone has seen Moon's weaponsmithing prowess. If she is in the Divine Weapon Academy, there shouldn't be anyone making things difficult for her, right? Qin Wentian asked again. Don't worry, we aren't blind. Moon's weaponsmithing prowess is naturally in our eyes. As long as she is willing, the elders of the academy will accept her as a disciple. Our Divine Weapon Academy isn't so lacking in magnanimity that we would vent our anger on a genius of our academy, just because of the grudge between you and Wang Yunfei. That elder replied. Junior naturally believes in the Divine Weapon Academy. Qin Wentian nodded. He turned to Moon. Moon, your talent in weaponsmithing isn't bad. This place is very suitable for you. Work hard and you will definitely have accomplishments in the future. This matter shall end here. It has nothing to do with you. No. Moon wanted to speak. She knew how strong Wang Yunfei was. He was someone who would be participating in the sacred battle platform tomorrow. Facing such a powerful existence, even if Qin Wentian's attainments in divine inscriptions were extraordinary, it was impossible for him to surpass Wang Yunfei in terms of combat. This matter ends here. Qin Wentian directly interrupted Moon's words. As for Wang Yunfei, I don't care about him. At this moment, when Moon saw the self-confidence Qin Wentian exuded, she actually started to believe Qin Wentian. Just when she was hesitating, Qin Wentian turned to Wang Yunfei and asked, I heard that you will be heading to the sacred battle platform tomorrow to join in the fun? Wang Yunfei started. After that, he coldly laughed. There's a battle arranged tomorrow. I, Wang Yunfei, do indeed want to go there to take a look. As for the battle arranged tomorrow, I also want to take a look. The sacred battle platform is truly suitable for me to spread my name across the world. If you can defeat me, I will gift you as many divine weapons as you want. Qin Wentian emotionlessly spoke. Since he was going to battle tomorrow, he might as well settle it tomorrow. Wang Yunfei contemplated for a moment before stepping out and pointing to Qin Wentian. You said it yourself. What if you don't appear tomorrow? I will go with you tomorrow. If he doesn't appear, you can do whatever you want to me. Moon stared at Wang Yunfei as she spoke. Qin Wentian started, but upon seeing the resolution in Moon's eyes, he didn't say anything more. How could he not appear tomorrow? After all, there was already a battle arranged for him. Fine, everyone in the academy has heard your words. Wang Yunfei stared at Moon before pointing to Qin Wentian. If you don't dare to appear tomorrow, I will make Moon become my maid. You better think about the consequences. Qin Wentian's countenance turned cold. If you are defeated, what will you do? Do whatever you want to me. Wang Yunfei was incomparably confident. He had a cultivation base at the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. How could he be defeated? See you tomorrow. Qin Wentian turned and carried Little Rascal in his arms as he left together with Qin. Very swiftly, they left the Divine Weapon Academy. However, the atmosphere in the Divine Weapon Academy was in an uproar. Even the examination today seemed to have lost its luster. Tomorrow, the sacred battle platform would be filled with geniuses from all over the world. The battle between the top ranker of the immortal martial realm, Qin Wentian, and one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, Di Shi, was so dazzling that it was unknown how many experts would be attracted. In addition to the fact that Wang Yunfei would also be on the sacred battle platform, how could the crowd not go crazy? Moon frowned, as though she was worried. As for Rongyan and Shenjing, their countenances were ice cold. Tomorrow, Wang Yunfei would surely ruthlessly trample on that fellow who caused them to lose all face. Chapter 619. After Qin Wentian left, the year-end examination of the Divine Weapon Academy continued. However, the atmosphere was no longer the same as before. The thoughts of many had already drifted to tomorrow. At the same time, the people of the sacred royal city started to head towards the direction of the sacred battle platform. Although there were over 1 million people gathered outside the immortal martial realm, in the perspective of the royal sacred region, this number was merely a drop of water in the ocean. The vast majority of the people in the sacred royal city had never seen Qin Wentian before. They had only heard of what happened in the immortal martial realm. Being the top ranker of the immortal martial realm, slaying a prince of Grand Shang Empire, causing an elder of the royal sacred sect to fall because of him. He was the lover of the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, the son-in-law of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, the adopted son of the Emperor of Yi, a disciple of the Battle Sword sect, breaking the sword comprehension record of the Battle Sword sect, and having the highest potential among the Heavenly Dipper sovereigns of the Battle Sword sect. All these titles caused Qin Wentian to have too many halos surrounding him. Not only that, he wasn't fighting against an ordinary opponent. His opponent was one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses of the Royal Sacred Region, Di Shi, the absolute genius of the Supreme Di clan. In a radius of a few hundred miles around the sacred battle platform, the entire area was filled with people. Countless experts rushed there. The inns and restaurants were all filled. Tonight no one slept. Countless people were discussing the current situation of the younger generation in the Royal Sacred Region. There were rumors that Gu Lufeng might have left the Royal Sacred Region, while Hua Taishu had joined the Royal Sacred Sect. Other than the two of them, for out of the other 6 era-suppressing geniuses had already appeared in this region. There were people who saw them. Many experts from the Celestial Maiden sect also appeared. Lin Xian, who had the title of the number 1 beauty, attracted the gazes of countless people. The upper echelons of the Supreme Di clan had also arrived. There were even more experts from the Grand Shang Empire, and there were even a few sword sovereigns from the Battle Sword sect, etc. In any case, the entire region around the sacred battle platform was in an uproar. Tonight, in a radius of a few hundred miles around the sacred battle platform, many conflicts occurred. Many of them were arguing over who would be the victor between Qin Wentian and Di Shi. Tonight, no one slept. Hence, the scene of the sacred battle platform being packed so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through when the sun rose the next day. Without the strength of a celestial phenomenon ascendant, or the backing of a major power, They didn't even dare to squeeze their way to the front. They didn't even dare to soar through the air and fly above the heads of the crowd. For someone without any background or strength, wasn't this simply courting death? The rising sun shone down on the sacred battle platform, causing the entire platform to be dyed in a layer of golden light. The sacred battle platform had viewing platforms in all 8 directions, sufficient to accommodate tens of thousands of spectators. Below these viewing platforms there were many passageways. Right now, there were no spectators on the viewing platforms, but the passageways were already filled with people. The sun is hanging high in the sky. It's time to make an appearance, right? Someone mused in his heart. At this moment, a whistling sound rang out in the air, causing the hearts of many to tremble. Those who dared to fly in the air at this moment were undoubtedly from major powers of the royal sacred region, or those supreme geniuses. Only then would their subordinates be willing to tolerate such a thing. Sure. Someone instantly exclaimed when he saw the person in the lead. He had a sharp gaze, a murderous expression, and a wild aura that emanated from his entire body. He was like a peerless, ferocious bird. His gaze seemed ordinary, but so long as one came into contact with his eyes, one would be able to sense the terrifying explosive power contained within that indifference. Is he sure? He's actually the first to arrive. Seems like he has been preparing for this battle for a very long time. The crowd instantly erupted into an uproar. Sure was the first to step onto the sacred battle platform. Behind him, there were many experts from the Supreme D clan, all of them exuding a terrifying aura. These people arrived at one of the 8 viewing platforms and flicked their sleeves as they sat down. Sure sat down as well. His eyes were closed as he silently waited, not releasing any aura at all. Not too long after, another group of silhouettes soared through the air, landing on the viewing platform, causing a huge commotion. These people were all from the Grand Shang Empire. The person in the lead had a crown on his head, exuding a lofty aura. His eyes gleamed with the aura of a true dragon, as though he was the ruler of this entire world. That's the Crown Prince of Grand Shang, Shang Yin. 20 years ago, he was ranked number 4 in the immortal martial realm. His talent is unparalleled, and he's currently cultivating in the royal sacred sect. Now that Shang Tong has fallen, it's rumored that the Emperor of Grand Shang is going to confer the title of Crown Prince to him, allowing him to inherit the throne of Grand Shang. Seems like the rumors are true. Many sighed in admiration. Shang Yin came here with a lofty status, wearing a crown on his head. Maybe he has already been conferred the title of Crown Prince of Grand Shang. The people from the Violet Thunder sect have arrived. From afar, more experts arrived. These were none other than the Violet Thunder sect of the 9 great sections. After the Violet Thunder sect, the other experts from the 9 great sects also arrived. And after that, the Qi clan and Tianfan sect of the western regions arrived, as well as 2 supreme geniuses. The appearance of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, Qi Lian and Fan Miaoyu, instantly attracted the attention of the crowd. However, very swiftly, their gazes were drawn over by others. The people from the Celestial Maiden sect had also arrived. The number 1 beauty of the royal sacred region, Lin Xian had appeared in the Celestial Maiden sect. Her breathtaking countenance instantly caused many to be dazed. Before Lin Xian, Fan Miaoyu and Princess Jiao Yang of the Grand Zhou Empire had also arrived. Both of them were already very beautiful, yet they couldn't be compared to Lin Xian. The experts from Radiant Gold Ancient Country have arrived. The experts from the War Country have arrived. Li Tian, one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, has arrived. The crowd exclaimed unceasingly. Today, it was destined that countless supreme experts would arrive. And at this moment, a group of people walked over from afar. The person in the lead was clad in a simple long robe that wasn't luxurious at all. Yet when he stood there, he exuded the aura of a king. Such an aura was somewhat similar to Shang Yin of Grand Shang, the human emperor of Yi Qingyuan. Someone recognized this person as many exclaimed in shock. Even the human emperor of Yi had personally arrived. Yi Qingyuan is the foster father of Qin Wentian. Back then, he was absent during the immortal martial realm battle. This time around, he came to support Qin Wentian, hoping that Qin Wentian would be able to suppress the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. "Father!" A voice drifted over from afar. A look of joy appeared on Yi Qingyun's face as he turned his gaze in that direction. He saw Yi Lingshuang appearing together with the experts from the Battle Sword sect. "The Battle Sword sect has arrived. Why hasn't Qin Wentian appeared?" The gazes of the crowd searched for Qin Wentian, yet they discovered that Qin Wentian wasn't there. At this instant, Di Shi's eyes opened, gleaming with sharpness as he stared in the direction of the Battle Sword sect. He coldly spoke. "Could it be that Qin Wentian is afraid of battle today and doesn't dare to show up? Junior brother Qin has long departed. He should be in the sacred royal city now." A voice drifted over. The person who spoke was none other than Lin Shuai. This caused many to glance at him, as well as Ji Feishue, who was beside Lin Shuai. Another era-suppressing genius had arrived. Di Shi coldly snorted as he closed his eyes once more. On the viewing platform, the number of people gathered grew more and more. It was unknown how many famous characters there were. In a certain location, a group of experts were gathered. These were none other than the people from the Divine Weapon Academy, and Wang Yunfei was among them. Other than Wang Yunfei, Rongyan, Xinjing and Moon were all here. "Senior brother, this is the stage that belongs to you." Xinjing smiled. She was as beautiful and elegant as ever, but right now, she wasn't as conspicuous as before, because there were simply too many females who were more outstanding than her. Wang Yunfei nodded, filled with anticipation. The sacred battle platform. Would it be the battle where he, Wang Yunfei, would truly become famous throughout the royal sacred region? In fact, he had long wanted to come here to test his strength. Now that the battle between Qin Wentian and Di Shi was in the limelight, he came here to make use of this opportunity. "I'm only afraid that someone has already slipped away, not daring to appear." Rongyan mocked, staring at Moon. Today, if that person didn't come, Moon would have become Wang Yunfei's maid. At that time, he could already imagine Moon's ending. What a pity, such a beauty would become Wang Yunfei's plaything. He isn't that kind of person. Moon frowned. She believed in Qin Wentian. "You actually have fantasies about him?" Xinjing coldly laughed. "Could it be that something really happened between you and him? Don't tell me your feelings were played by him?" "Humph." Moon coldly stared at Xinjing. Xinjing mocked. "Look, more and more experts are arriving. When he sees such a lineup, I'm afraid he wouldn't dare to come out, right?" When Moon heard her sarcasm, she replied, "Maybe he would do the same thing as yesterday, appearing here in such a dazzling manner. At that time, you can only look up to him in admiration." Xinjing froze. She stared at Moon in disbelief. After which she spoke in a low voice. "Have you gone crazy?" After speaking, she turned her gaze away, no longer looking at Moon. At this moment, a commotion rang out from the surroundings. After which, the commotion grew louder and louder as a terrifying sound wave erupted forth. In the air, the silhouette of a young man slowly walked over. The instant he appeared, countless gazes turned to him. Qin Wentian has arrived. Is he the top ranker of the immortal martial realm, Qin Wentian? This young man was clad in white, simple and clean. His features were handsome, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. Casually standing in the air, he exuded a sense of magnificence. "Wentian, you are here." The human emperor smiled. "Foster father." Qin Wentian nodded to the human emperor. "Junior brother Qin." Lin Shuai and the others from the Battle Sword sect greeted Qin Wentian. "Sir Qin, we meet again." Lin Xian from the Celestial Maiden sect stepped forward, smiling at Qin Wentian. "Wentian." A voice drifted over from afar. After which, the crowd saw a group of female silhouettes floating over. The one in the lead had a countenance so beautiful that it could topple empires. She wasn't the slightest bit inferior compared to Lin Xian Qingqing. Qin Wentian smiled. He walked to the side of Mo Qingqing and held her hand. The two of them stood together, resembling a golden boy and jade girl, a match made in heaven. Is he Qin Wentian? Wang Yunfei stared at the silhouette of the young man, his countenance fluctuating. Xinjing's beautiful eyes flickered with a bright light. Staring at Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing, She couldn't help but feel a sense of inferiority in her heart. She no longer had the slightest bit of arrogance as she mumbled, "These two should be the true heaven's chosen." The instant he appeared, he instantly attracted the attention of everyone. Rong Yan stared at Qin Wentian. He didn't have any thoughts of comparing himself to him. Moon stared at Qin Wentian as she involuntarily thought of another silhouette in her heart. "Seems like the person you are waiting for won't be coming. Moon, just accept your fate." Xinjing sarcastically spoke. She actually thought that the person she was looking for would appear in a dazzling manner. How ridiculous. And just as Xinjing was speaking, Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice to Mo Qingqing. "I'm going to go greet a friend of mine." Mo Qingqing nodded her head lightly, after which she saw Qin Wentian walking a few steps forward. Xinjing discovered that his gaze was actually directed in her direction. Momentarily, Xinjing's heart pounded wildly. Moon's beautiful eyes froze as well. She stared at that pair of eyes. That expression, there was a sense of déjà vu. "Moon." Qin Wentian called out. Instantly, Moon's beautiful eyes froze. It was as though her breathing had stopped. She naturally knew who this familiar name belonged to. But at this moment, the shock in her heart was even greater compared to the time when he stepped onto the path of fourth-ranked divine inscriptions. Tianwen, Wentian Qin Wentian. He appeared in an even more dazzling manner, like a heavenly deity descending to the mortal world. Chapter 620. Time seemed to have stopped. Moon's beautiful eyes froze as she stood there unmoving. Yet in her heart, a raging tempest arose. This young man was actually Qin Wentian. Moon had thought that someone like Tianwen might be a heaven's chosen, or an outstanding genius from an aristocratic clan. But the reason he appeared here today was because he came together with his clan. But what Moon didn't expect was that he actually came here alone. Not only that, he had changed his face to one that was even more handsome and youthful, appearing in the limelight in front of everyone. Because he was Qin Wentian, the top ranker of the immortal martial realm, the young man who was currently the most discussed person in the royal sacred region. Rong Yan and Xinjing were both stunned for a moment. They didn't recognize Qin Wentian. But after that, they also felt that his voice was somewhat familiar. After that, their hearts were struck by a heavy blow. The shock they felt was indescribable with words. When Rong Yan saw Qin Wentian appearing, he knew that this young man wasn't someone he could compare to. When Xinjing saw Qin Wentian, she said that he was a true heaven's chosen. However, the heaven's chosen in her eyes was someone she had once humiliated and mocked. Now that she thought back to Qin Wentian's words yesterday, she didn't bother with them because they weren't worthy. Moon's unintentional words actually turned into reality. Qin Wentian really appeared in an even more dazzling manner, and she, Xinjing, could only look up to him in admiration. "Thank you." A light laugh rang out. Moon's beautiful eyes were filled with a radiant smile. However, her eyes were slightly moist, as though there were tears flickering within. She didn't know why these tears were flowing, but at this moment, Moon was extremely grateful to herself. Her emotions were extremely complicated. "Thank you." Moon sincerely spoke. This young man in front of her, he allowed her to undergo a complete transformation, appearing in such a dazzling manner in front of those who mocked her. He exuded a magnificence that surpassed the generations, becoming the center of attention the moment he appeared. He fulfilled all the fantasies Moon had of her other half, perfect and flawless. But Moon understood that it was destined to be nothing more than a fairy tale. Just like what she had thought before, such a character, only an incomparably beautiful woman would be able to match up to him. Mo Qingqing was undoubtedly such a woman. They stood together, holding hands. Everyone would feel that they were a match made in heaven. She would only wish the young man in front of her the best, walking towards his glorious future. "Moon, even without me, you would still have completed your transformation sooner or later. I merely did some things in advance. Most of it is because of your innate talent." Qin Wentian gently laughed. "Oh yeah, don't forget what you promised me. If there's a day when I want to forge a weapon, you will help me without any compensation. Naturally, I can even help you forge weapons every day." Moon smiled radiantly, but as the sound of her voice faded, She suddenly felt that there was something wrong with her words. After which, a blush appeared on her face as she lowered her head and fiddled with her skirt. "I'll take your words seriously." Qin Wentian laughed. When the two of them were conversing, Rong Yan and Shen Jing didn't even bother to interrupt. Qin Wentian didn't even glance at them. Such disregard surpassed any form of humiliation. And at this moment, Wang Yunfei's countenance turned ashen. This top ranker of the immortal martial realm actually had a higher attainment in the Tao of divine inscriptions than him. And as for the path of cultivation, there was no doubt that if the two of them were at the same level, he would only be insta-killed. This was a character who dared to jump levels to challenge Di Shi. Shang Tong couldn't even withstand a single strike from him. However, Wang Yunfei wasn't at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. He was at the 9th level. Since his opponent was Qin Wentian, it was even better. An intense battle intent gushed forth from him as he rushed towards Qin Wentian. This battle would be the battle where his name would resound throughout the world. "Since you are Qin Wentian, it's even better." Wang Yunfei floated up into the air, staring at Qin Wentian as he roared, "Fight!" Qin Wentian swept a glance at Wang Yunfei before turning and stepping out. His silhouette directly appeared in the airspace above the sacred battle platform. On the sacred battle platform, a dazzling light flashed as a terrifying formless fluctuation could be felt. At this instant, Di Shi opened his eyes. His gaze was incomparably demonic, akin to that of a primordial bird of prey. He stared at Qin Wentian, his gaze so sharp that it felt as though it could tear people apart. He icily spoke. "Hurry up and settle your matter. Your life is mine." His arrogant voice contained an arrogance that disregarded everything. For this battle, he came here with the conviction that he would definitely win. His words similarly humiliated Wang Yunfei. It was like in his eyes, Wang Yunfei wasn't even worth a mention, and he wanted Qin Wentian to settle this quickly. Such humiliation caused Wang Yunfei to turn ashen. He glanced at Di Shi before stepping out. "I, Wang Yunfei of the Divine Weapon Academy, hereby challenge Qin Wentian." After speaking, his silhouette walked up the sacred battle platform. "Choose the rules of the battle." A voice drifted over. It was none other than the controller of the sacred battle platform. This ancient and famous battle platform wasn't a place where just anyone could step on. Unless one was a heaven's chosen, they wouldn't have the qualifications to fight on the sacred battle platform. "You decide first." Qin Wentian stared at Wang Yunfei as he emotionlessly spoke. "Divine weapons below the 5th rank can be used. If you admit defeat, you are not allowed to continue fighting. If you lose, I want all your interspatial rings." Wang Yunfei coldly spoke. "Fine. If you lose, I will break one of your arms." Qin Wentian's eyes were emotionless. "Fine." Wang Yunfei gritted his teeth, his countenance turned ashen. Qin Wentian actually wanted one of his arms? "The rules are set. Those who violate them shall be slain on the sacred battle platform." A cold and imposing voice rang out. After which, a bright light flashed as a formless rune flowed about. A stone platform appeared beneath the feet of the two of them, and at the same time, a screen of light enveloped them. The sacred battle platform was officially opened. There were no fixed rules on the sacred battle platform. It was set by the two combatants. Once both parties agreed, the rules would be set. If one party violated the rules, the energy of the sacred battle platform would directly kill him. Rumble. A supreme aura gushed forth from Wang Yunfei. He inclined his head slightly as his astral nova was released. His body was clad in a suit of armor, and a resplendent halo of divine weapons could be seen behind him, capable of destroying everything. Terrifying rumbling sounds rang out, as though his blood was boiling. The sharpness in his body grew even stronger, as though his body was forged from divine weapons. "Huh." Wang Yunfei stepped out, soaring up into the air. He stared at Qin Wentian, who was still standing on the stone platform, as he roared in rage. Instantly, boundless sharpness erupted forth, resplendent with the killing intent towering up into the sky. Qin Wentian's bloodline seethed, resembling the descendant of a supreme demon king. He stood there, his long hair fluttering in the wind as his aura surged madly. A resplendent golden light flashed as the wings of a golden-winged great rock appeared on his back. When the light from the divine weapon slashed over, Qin Wentian abruptly moved. He was like a bolt of golden lightning, vanishing from his original location in the blink of an eye. The golden rock's silhouette lengthened unceasingly as countless afterimages appeared, making it impossible to see where the true body was. Wang Yunfei's aura grew increasingly sharp. Yet to his shock, he discovered that everything he saw was an illusion. There was a faint dream-type energy seeping into his body, causing him to hallucinate. Z. A resplendent golden silhouette whistled in rage as it shot towards him. Wang Yunfei coldly snorted as the light from the divine weapon behind him erupted forth. That golden silhouette shattered into pieces, yet there was no blood. Wang Yunfei. A voice drifted into his ears, sounding like it came from all directions. The golden rock in front of him seemed to have split into thousands of clones. It was impossible to tell which was the real one, and which was the fake one. Wang Yunfei's eyes gleamed with a terrifying cold light as a sharp aura that could annihilate everything gushed forth. Wang Yunfei waved his palms and instantly, the sounds of explosions rang out unceasingly. Destructive beams of light filled the air, and with a thunderous rumble, Wang Yunfei instantly found the location of the true body of Qin Wentian. His palms pressed downwards as a wave of destructive fluctuations manifested. However, astral light flashed as a terrifying palm imprint smashed downwards, shattering everything. After which, an incomparably lofty pair of eyes stared at Wang Yunfei as the silhouette of that golden rock rushed over with lightning speed. Right now, Qin Wentian already had a rough idea of what level Wang Yunfei's attack was at. He activated the illusionary clone art as many incarnations of Qin Wentian appeared in the surroundings. These incarnations were all staring at Wang Yunfei, as their eyes gleamed with a light so bright that it could penetrate into the soul, causing Wang Yunfei's heart to tremble intensely. Seems like I've overestimated you. You are truly unworthy. Qin Wentian emotionlessly spoke. After which, he simply stood there and blasted out with his palms. Instantly, a million palm imprints erupted forth, blasting towards Wang Yunfei. Wang Yunfei's countenance grew incredibly unsightly. Qin Wentian actually dared to look down on him like this? Wang Yunfei's entire body was covered in blood, and there seemed to be a crimson glow radiating from him. Numerous blood-colored spears manifested and shot up into the sky. Thunderous rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly as the palm imprints and spears exploded. Wang Yunfei stepped out, and the light behind him that could mince everything in its path shot out. Qin Wentian's countenance was expressionless as he continued pressing downwards. The millions of palm imprints seemed to be able to crush the heavens and earth, destroying everything. The two of them got closer and closer, as though they were about to fight in close-range combat. What a violent battle! The spectators in the surroundings all felt their hearts pounding. Such a battle was too violent, using offense against offense. The tyrannical qi currents engulfed the entire sacred battle platform. Qin Wentian pressed downwards from the air. Each and every palm imprint contained an incomparably fearsome vibrational force. It was unknown how many rounds of attacks had landed, but Wang Yunfei only felt his internal organs trembling from the impact, as he felt an immense pressure bearing down on him. Qin Wentian roared in rage. Yet another round of attacks that seemed capable of annihilating the heavens and earth blasted out. After which, several silhouettes howled in rage as a surge of destructive might gushed forth, causing Wang Yunfei's countenance to stiffen. Die. Wang Yunfei howled in rage, wanting to struggle in desperation. Divine inscriptions erupted forth from his body, enveloping him within. However, he only saw numerous palm imprints slamming down, colliding madly against the halo of light around him. Wang Yunfei coughed out fresh blood as he finally halted his advance, being forced downwards from the impact. A single arm. A voice filled with killing intent rang out. A blood-colored ancient halberd materialized from the void, directly piercing into Wang Yunfei's right arm. With a flick of the halberd, a piercing sound rang out as Wang Yunfei's arm fell from the air. Sword qi rained down, directly shattering the arm. The two of them separated. Wang Yunfei's countenance was as pale as paper. Fresh blood flowed unceasingly from his arm, dripping onto the sacred battle platform. Only this level of strength? You are truly too weak. Scram from here. Qin Wentian stood in the air as he calmly spoke. The screen of light flickered open. Wang Yunfei walked towards the direction of the Divine Weapon Academy, staring at his pale countenance and severed arm, as well as the arrogant figure of Qin Wentian. Shen Jing, Rong Yan, Moon and the rest all had different feelings in their hearts. Regardless of cultivation or divine inscriptions, that magnificent silhouette of Qin Wentian had absolute superiority over the heaven chosen in their eyes, Wang Yunfei. Chapter 621. The countenances of the spectators on the sacred battle platform were calm. This battle didn't exceed their expectations. Although Wang Yunfei had a very high opinion of himself, and was somewhat famous in the sacred royal city, wanting to borrow the sacred battle platform to spread his name throughout the world. However, not everyone would be able to shock the world with a single brilliant feat like Qin Wentian did in the immortal martial realm. The talent of those supreme geniuses in the royal sacred region could still be estimated from their fame. Although Wang Yunfei was strong, his fame couldn't be compared to the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. Qin Wentian was someone who had the strength to fight against Di Shi. Hence, defeating Wang Yunfei was also within expectations. If not, they would surely be disappointed in this top ranker of the immortal martial realm. This battle caused Shen Jing, Rong Yan, Moon and the others from the Divine Weapon Academy to be greatly shocked. But to those major characters who came here to spectate today, this was merely a prelude. The next battle would be the one they were truly looking forward to. Qin Wentian's name resounded throughout the immortal martial realm. Now, relying on his incomparable might, he would challenge the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, jumping levels and fighting against Di Shi. If Di Shi won, Qin Wentian's potential would still be limitless. But everyone would treat him as someone on the same level as the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. If Qin Wentian won, his fame would truly suppress the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, becoming an existence that stood at the pinnacle. In the same era, there would be no one who could be on the same level as him. He would be the symbol of an era, the symbol of the future. The meaning of this battle was extraordinary. In addition, this wasn't merely a battle between Qin Wentian and Di Shi. Back in the immortal martial realm, Di Shi even invited the geniuses of the royal sacred region to gather here to battle against the heavens. Qin Wentian didn't feel the slightest bit complacent about defeating Wang Yunfei. He understood that the next challenge was the one he truly needed to face. That was a battle that belonged to him. On the sacred battle platform, Qin Wentian's long hair fluttered in the wind, resembling numerous sharp blades. His entire body exuded a demonic aura. Many people were wondering if this young man would become a new legend today. The sacred battle platform, the most famous battle platform in the royal sacred region. Would Qin Wentian's fame rise to fame? Boom. A light sound rang out, as though the earth was trembling. Di Shi stood up, his gaze piercing through space, landing on that fiendishly handsome silhouette on the sacred battle platform. His entire body radiated an incomparably baleful aura, as though a supreme ferocious bird of prey was about to erupt forth from his body, slaughtering everything in its path. His sharp eyes swept over the crowd as he emotionlessly spoke. After the immortal martial realm ends, I invite all heroes to gather here. Geniuses below the celestial phenomenon realm are welcome to participate in the battle today. Let's see who is unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper, unrivaled in a single level. Di Shi's voice boomed out, filled with a tyrannical aura. It was as though he came here with unparalleled confidence. Qin Wentian would become the stepping stone for him on his martial path. For the battle today, he would definitely be victorious, slaying the top ranker of the immortal martial realm, Qin Wentian, cleansing the humiliation of not being able to enter the top 10. 8 era-suppressing geniuses. All 8 of them are equally famous. However, I have yet to truly fight against any of them. Taking this opportunity today, I also want to see whose combat prowess is unrivaled. A tyrannical voice thundered out. After which, a burly figure walked out from the crowd. This person was none other than one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, Li Tian. There were many races in the desolate mountain range. Some referred to them as the barbarian race, but in truth, a single race had no way to encompass the entire desolate mountain range. Li Tian was born in the Heaven Punisher clan, And there were also people who referred to him as the barbarian Li Tian. His mandate of metal was unrivaled, pursuing the pinnacle. The blood of the desolate mountain range flowed in his veins, allowing his body to expand in size, transforming into a battle god of the desolate mountain range. He was born with innate divine strength, and in addition to his fearsome mandate of metal, his attacks were terrifying. Li Tian's cultivation base has also broken through to the 8th level of Heavenly Dipper. Everyone could feel the powerful aura radiating from Li Tian as they sighed in their hearts. The 8 of them were destined to stand at the forefront of this era, becoming the representatives of this era. After which, Qi Lian walked out. His entire body exuded a tyrannical killing intent. The crown prince of the eastern mountain country, Dongyue Hanjiang, has also stepped out. The crowd drew in a deep breath as they saw the silhouette of a king. It was none other than Dongyue Hanjiang. This battle wasn't merely a battle between Di Shi and Qin Wentian. Similarly, it was also a battle between the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. Sadly, Gu Lufeng and Hua Taishu didn't come. Fan Miaoyu also stepped out. Fan Miaoyu's cultivation base had already reached the peak of the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper, and as one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, she could be considered the strongest among these people, and had the highest possibility of being unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper. Ji Feishue didn't step onto the battlefield. His cultivation base was only at the peak of the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, and although his talent was high, if he wanted to jump levels and fight against these geniuses, he would undoubtedly lose. Staring at the silhouette of Qin Wentian, Ji Feishue couldn't help but to admit that the rumor that Qin Wentian had already replaced him as the #1 disciple of the Battle Sword sect had already become a reality. Just these people? There should still be people who haven't appeared yet, right? Usually, they are all known as unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper. Why aren't they stepping out now? Di Shi's voice rang out. As the sound of his voice faded, in the direction of the Violet Thunder sect, another silhouette stepped out. The long robes of this person were embroidered with images of lightning. He stood there, exuding a sense of unexcelled in the world. This person wasn't one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, and his fame couldn't be compared to them. But for those who were familiar with him, they would know that this person was even more dangerous compared to the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. Lu Lan of the Violet Thunder sect, just like what Di Shi had said, he had already reached the level of being unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper. What did it mean to be unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper? Just like the name implied, it meant that one was at the peak of Heavenly Dipper, with unrivaled combat prowess. But how could one be unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper? Everyone knew that in order to step into celestial phenomenon, one had to first comprehend a true intent of their mandates before they could break through to celestial phenomenon. However, there were many existences whose innate talent and combat prowess were exceedingly high, and they had comprehended a true intent of their mandates, but had yet to break through to celestial phenomenon. Lu Lan was precisely such a character. This time around, other than killing Qin Wentian, Di Shi also had another purpose, and that was to dominate the entire Heavenly Dipper realm. Although there were many characters like Lu Lan in the Royal Sacred Region, none of them were able to gain the recognition of the Royal Sacred Region, obtaining the title of unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper. Only a single person could be considered unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper. The others were all fake. If there were 2 of them, how could they be considered unrivaled? Di Shi, right now he had such ambition, wanting to become the only existence in the Royal Sacred Region. Such ambition, his appetite was simply too great. Wanting to obtain the recognition of being unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper in the Royal Sacred Region was even more difficult compared to becoming one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. There were simply too many demon-level characters in the Royal Sacred Region, and there were also too many who were stuck at the peak of Heavenly Dipper, but had yet to break through to celestial phenomenon. Some of these people roamed the world. Some hid in seclusion, seeking a breakthrough, and there were even some who had comprehended a few true intents of their mandates. Under such circumstances, other than those supreme geniuses who founded an era, who else could obtain the title of being unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper? Another silhouette walked out. This person was clad in golden battle armor, and his entire body was bathed in golden light. His eyes stared at Li Tian as his battle intent towered up into the heavens. The Crown Prince of Radiant Gold has arrived. Upon seeing this person, the countenances of many froze. This person was absent from the immortal martial realm, and it was said that he had a stroke of good fortune that allowed him to comprehend a true intent of his mandates. Now, it was unknown how terrifying his true combat prowess was. In the direction of the war country, another silhouette stepped out. This person had a middle-aged appearance, looking to be around 40 years of age. He was a heaven chosen of the war country, and was also a disciple of one of the 9 great sects, the heaven-cleaving manner. His strength was so terrifying that it was rumored that he had also stepped into the unrivaled realm of Heavenly Dipper. Lulan and this heaven chosen from the war country, they didn't enter the immortal martial realm a few months ago. Their combat prowess was extremely high, but the immortal martial realm was a test of talent and potential. There were many older characters in the royal sacred region whose combat prowess was exceedingly high, but this didn't mean that they would choose to enter the immortal martial realm. Because if their talent wasn't high enough, the immortal martial realm might just bury them. These characters already had a foot in the celestial phenomenon realm. Why would they still want to take the risk and enter? Only the 8 era-suppressing geniuses didn't have any fear. They had absolute confidence in their own talent. Although the immortal martial realm could bury geniuses, it wouldn't be able to bury them. This battle is getting more and more exciting. However, where did Disher's confidence come from? The hearts of the spectators trembled. Could it be that Disher had also comprehended a true intent of his mandate? If that was the case, Qin Wentian would definitely be in danger. Although Qin Wentian's talent was extremely high, his cultivation base was only at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. If he wanted to fight against those unrivaled existences in Heavenly Dipper, his strength wouldn't be sufficient. Wentian, be careful of these people. They are all existences at the peak of Heavenly Dipper, who have comprehended a true intent of their mandates. Lin Shui transmitted his voice to Qin Wentian. It's enough for you to fight against Disher. Even if you refused to fight against these people, no one would say anything about it. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. He felt an immense pressure gushing towards him. These people who came to the sacred battle platform today were all extremely terrifying. 9 people, very good. Disher swept his gaze over. Of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, there were 5 of them. In addition, there was Qin Wentian, Lulan from the Violet Thunder sect, the Crown Prince of Radiant Gold, and the Heaven Chosen of the war country. 9 people. Any one of them would be able to cause the crowd to tremble when they appeared. But today, all 9 of them walked up to the sacred battle platform at the same time. Since all of you have appeared, why don't we have a battle to decide everything? I suggest that all 9 of you enter the sacred battle platform at the same time. How about it? Disher's countenance sharpened as he spoke. The sacred battle platform could accommodate multiple people. Madman, why is Disher so crazy today? This Disher, why is he so confident? Could it be that his strength has already reached another level? Many people sighed in their hearts when they heard Disher's crazy words. Wentian, if all 9 of you enter the sacred battle platform at the same time, it means that the 9 of you will be directly fighting against each other. None of you can think about remaining unscathed. You have to take turns to fight. Be careful. Lin Shui continued to transmit his voice to Qin Wentian. Such a battle was simply too dangerous. Qin Wentian's gaze froze once more. 9 people, taking turns to fight against each other. Not only that, among these 9 people, there wasn't a single one he dared to say he could suppress. Any one of them had towering combat prowess. Disher's words instantly caused great waves of commotion. As for the remaining 8, did they dare to accept? Did Qin Wentian dare to accept? Qin Wentian. At this moment, Disher spoke again, staring in the direction of Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at him only to hear Disher coldly speaking. All 9 of you enter the sacred battle platform together. Let's make a pact first. If you don't die, I won't exit the sacred battle platform. If I don't die, you won't exit the platform. The hearts of the crowd trembled. This was a life and death battle. If one of them died, the other would be able to exit the sacred battle platform. Do you dare? Disher roared as his killing intent gushed forth. He was filled with lofty aspirations, wanting to slay the top ranker of the immortal martial realm today. Chapter 622. At this moment, Disher's overwhelming self-confidence made it seem as though Qin Wentian was already in his bag. He would die without a doubt. Wentian, be careful. This time around, the person you challenged is only Disher. You can just agree to fight against him alone. Duan Han transmitted his voice to Qin Wentian. This battle was too dangerous. Other than the 5 era-suppressing geniuses, the other 3 were all unrivaled existences in Heavenly Dipper, who had comprehended a true intent. Although Qin Wentian's talent was outstanding, he was still lacking compared to these people. The gazes of everyone were focused on Qin Wentian. They were all very clear on how much pressure this top ranker of the immortal martial realm was facing right now. He only needed to endure for a year or 2 more, and step into the 8th or 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. At that time, it would be much easier for him to face such a situation. But after all, his foundation was still lacking. Wentian. Beside the human emperor of Yi, Yiling Shuang also transmitted her voiceover, feeling somewhat worried. Mo Qingqing's hands were clenched tightly. Her palms were covered in sweat, and traces of worry could be seen on her beautiful face. However, she didn't say anything. She didn't want to give Qin Wentian any pressure. Moon's beautiful eyes also turned over. She didn't expect Disher to be so arrogant. Even if Qin Wentian's magnificence was unmatched, if he accepted the challenge, he would still face a life-and-death crisis. What choice would he make? Qin Wentian's long hair fluttered in the wind. His demonic eyes stared at Disher. The sharpness in his eyes was even sharper than swords and sabers. He challenged Disher. If he was weaker than Disher, he would die. But if he was stronger than Disher, and Disher dared to face these people, how could he retreat? This battle was a battle of courage, a battle of conviction. The first time we met, you were incomparably arrogant. I killed your younger brother in front of you. The second time we met in the immortal martial realm, you were still as brazen as before, forced out of the top 10 by me. This is the third time. You are still as arrogant and foolish as ever. In that case, the date of your death shall be today. Qin Wentian stared at Disher as he icily stated, I accept the challenge. As soon as Qin Wentian's voice faded, the crowd burst into an uproar. Qin Wentian accepted the challenge. Not only that, from Qin Wentian's tone, this Disher was truly pitiful. No wonder he hated Qin Wentian so much. The reason why he was ranked number 10 in the immortal martial realm was all thanks to Qin Wentian. From the looks of it, Disher's arrogance didn't seem to have any basis to back it up. After all, the previous 2 bloody lessons had been taught to him. The first 2 battles weren't real battles. Today, I will make you regret everything you've done. Disher icily spoke. After which, he turned his gaze onto the other 7 participants. Everyone, if there's anyone who doesn't dare to fight, you can withdraw now. If there's no one who wishes to do so, we shall set the rules of the battle. The 7 of them were all gathered around the sacred battle platform. Since they already stood out, how could they retreat? Since there's no one who wishes to withdraw, other than the battle between me and Qin Wentian, which is a life and death battle, the others can voluntarily concede and withdraw from the battlefield. How about it? Disher spoke again. I have no objections to the others, but between me and Qin Wentian, there's another agreement. A life and death battle. Lu Lan faintly spoke, his words causing Qin Wentian and the others to be startled. This Lu Lan actually wanted to kill Qin Wentian as well? Back then in Yi, they heard that Qin Wentian and Yi Qingyun had a grudge with the Violet Thunder sect. It seemed like they were planning to borrow Lu Lan's hand to kill Qin Wentian. Despicable. Lu Lan, no matter what, you are someone from the same generation as me. To think that you actually want a life and death battle with my junior apprentice brother. Lin Shuai mocked. If he doesn't dare to, he can reject. Lu Lan faintly spoke. I accept the challenge. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice, his words causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble. In this battle on the sacred battle platform, the pressure Qin Wentian was facing was simply too terrifying. Since none of you have any objections, let's enter the sacred battle platform. Disher emotionlessly spoke. In the depths of his eyes, an indiscernible cold light flickered. 9 people Qin Wentian. 5 era-suppressing geniuses. Disher Li Tian, Qilian Fan Miaoyu Dongyue Hanjiang. 3 unrivaled characters in Heavenly Dipper. Lu Lan from the Violet Thunder Sect, a prince from Radiant Gold, a disciple from the Heaven-Cleaving Manor, a genius from the War Country, Wu Tung. Such a terrifying lineup. When they all stepped onto the sacred battle platform, the hearts of the spectators trembled violently. Although the sacred battle platform was the most glorious battle platform in the Royal Sacred Region, it was extremely rare to see such a lineup. At the level of Heavenly Dipper, it would be extremely difficult to surpass them. On the sacred battle platform, 9 stone platforms materialized out of thin air, supporting the bodies of the 9 participants. A screen of light flashed as the sacred battle platform was activated. Within it, there was a dimension that was even vaster than what the spectators could see. Even peak-level celestial phenomenon ascendants could be supported here. Who will be the first to fight? A voice rang out. The 9 stone platforms all shone with a dazzling light, enveloping the 9 participants within a screen of light. I will fight against Qin Wentian. Disher's eyes gleamed with an unparalleled loftiness as a terrifying aura erupted forth. The might of a peak 8th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign exuded an incomparably baleful aura. Behind him, the shadow of a fearsome primordial bird manifested, resembling a gigantic azure rock. His entire body glowed with an incomparably demonic green light, and the baleful aura radiating from his eyes seemed capable of slaying people. The 9 stone platforms revolved, while the other 7 retreated in 7 different directions. Only Disher's and Qin Wentian's stone platforms remained facing each other. The top ranker of the immortal martial realm is finally going to face off against the 8 era-suppressing geniuses? The spectators stared at the 2 on the sacred battle platform. Disher stepped out, resembling a supreme primordial bird of prey. Qin Wentian was similarly incomparably demonic. His bloodline power erupted forth as he executed the fiend transformation art. Behind him, the shadow of the golden rock manifested as the 2 of them clashed against each other. The baleful and tyrannical auras clashed against each other in the air, causing whistling sounds to echo out, terrifying to the extreme. A raging wind raged as Disher dashed towards Qin Wentian. His palms blasted out as a gigantic primordial bird of prey tore through the air towards Qin Wentian. Just a casual strike from him already had the might of a 9th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Qin Wentian stared at the incoming primordial bird. Lifting his palms, he blasted out with them as Disher's silhouette directly appeared in front of Qin Wentian. The gigantic primordial bird behind him let out a terrifying screech as a terrifying light flashed. Numerous primordial birds howled in rage as they dashed out at the same time, wanting to tear apart the void. Boom! Qin Wentian stepped out as his star-seizing palms swept over everything. Resplendent runes of light circulated around his body. Disher's speed was exceedingly fast, revolving around Qin Wentian at a high speed. Qin Wentian's golden body shone with a resplendent light as he roared in rage, transforming into a true golden-winged rock. His speed wasn't any slower than Disher's. The Qin primordial bird and Disher's palm collided in a frenzy, causing rumbling sounds to echo out unceasingly. The entire space was trembling violently. Such a battle deeply shocked the spectators, especially those at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. They discovered that if they were to face such a ferocious attack, they wouldn't be able to withstand it at all. Ordinary characters at the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper would be easily torn apart by such an attack. The battle between the 2 towered up into the sky, and after which, the spectators saw numerous doppelgangers appearing on the sacred battle platform. Regardless of Disher or Qin Wentian, both of them seemed to have cultivated a similarly powerful secret art, able to transform into many doppelgangers. Those who were more attentive would discover that Qin Wentian had more doppelgangers compared to Disher. Although this was just a small detail, it caused the hearts of many to tremble. This indicated that Qin Wentian's comprehension abilities were stronger than Disher's. Bang! An intense collision rang out as the 2 of them separated. Everything returned to its original state. Disher floated in the air, staring at Qin Wentian's silhouette as he icily spoke. I'm merely testing you. Is your strength only at this level? In that case, I will be taking your life next. After speaking, a terrifying blood-colored light circulated around Di Shi's body. Beams of blood-colored light shot up to the skies as his astral souls and astral novas appeared behind him. An incomparably gigantic primordial bird, an azure rock, appeared behind him. Its baleful eyes seemed to have a life of its own, resembling a demonic bird from the supreme ancient immortal realms. Busy. A supremely powerful destructive energy gushed forth from Di Shi. At this instant, Di Shi became even more dangerous. The mandate of demons at the perfection boundary, the mandate of corrosion at the perfection boundary, and there seems to be a type of strengthening type will as well. Qin Wentian stared at the dangerous Di Shi right now. Within that azure light, a terrifying corrosive might could be sensed. Was this really Di Shi's strongest state? He should still have a hidden will that he hasn't unleashed yet. The strengthened Di Shi truly resembled a demonic bird from the supreme ancient immortal realms. His body transformed into a beam of light as he dashed out, his speed increasing. With a flick of his arms, the azure rock behind him radiated an incomparably terrifying azure light. Bang bang bang. Numerous incomparably terrifying ferocious birds transformed into streaks of azure light that frenziedly rushed towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he retreated, only to discover that his body seemed to have been frozen in place. There was an extremely powerful formless energy locking him down. This was a type of binding ability. Maybe this was the will of mandate that Di Shi had never unleashed before. In the immortal martial realm, his hands and legs were tied, and he had no way to unleash the full power of one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. But now he could finally unleash his full power without any restraints. Wentian. The countenances of the spectators who were concerned about Qin Wentian drastically changed. They stared at the terrifying primordial birds flying towards Qin Wentian, while Qin Wentian seemed to have been frozen in place. Every single era-suppressing genius has an extremely powerful ability. Di Shi was naturally no exception. Seems like in terms of combat prowess, Di Shi still has the advantage. Qin Wentian is a character that rose up through the generations. Would he be able to walk out of the sacred battle platform alive? Many people sighed in their hearts. If Qin Wentian lived, it meant that Di Shi would die. Resplendent astral light circulated around Qin Wentian's body. His body gradually grew larger, and a glass-like luster radiated from him, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble. His long hair turned black, and even his robes were dyed black. The him right now was akin to a supreme demonic lord. Releasing the illusionary clone art, numerous Qin Wentian silhouettes appeared in that space, stacking together as they blasted out at the same time. The heavens and earth trembled, but Qin Wentian didn't retreat. Instead he advanced, causing the entire space to tremble. I also want to see how you can take my life. Qin Wentian's silhouette was many times larger compared to Di Shi. He lifted his palm and blasted it out, aiming for the azure rock. Chapter 623. At this moment, Qin Wentian's silhouette was gigantic, as though he had transformed into a fiend god. His palms shone with a towering astral light, suppressing the heavens and earth. Di Shi and the gigantic azure rock behind him simultaneously executed incantations. Resplendent beams of light ravaged the space as a starry sky manifested. The battle between the two of them actually caused the shadow constellation to manifest. Such a scene was simply too shocking. The battle between two heavenly dipper sovereigns actually manifested the embryonic form of a constellation. Although it wasn't a true constellation, it was still enough to cause the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Bind him for me. Di Shi roared in rage. Boundless azure light radiated from the azure rock, and in an instant several demonic shadows manifested around Qin Wentian, capturing him. What ability is this? The hearts of the spectators pounded violently. Those demonic primordial beasts appeared from the void, locking onto Qin Wentian. The azure rock howled in rage, its eyes gleaming with a terrifying light. You can't escape death even if you want to, Di Shi coldly spoke, stepping towards Qin Wentian, who was in the form of a supreme demonic lord. An era-suppressing heaven chosen, standing at the forefront of this era in the vast royal sacred region. How could he be an ordinary character? He wasn't someone ordinary geniuses could compare to. Although Di Shi was incomparably arrogant, there was no need to doubt his combat prowess. If not, he wouldn't have obtained the title of era-suppressing heaven chosen. How powerful! The spectators sighed in their hearts. This was the reason why the 8 of them were considered era-suppressing geniuses. Before this, because Di Shi was kicked out of the top 10 in the immortal martial realm, many people doubted him, feeling that Di Shi wasn't worthy of such fame. But now, everyone understood that even if Di Shi was ranked number 11 in the immortal martial realm, he was still Di Shi, unexcelled in this world. Are you even worthy? Qin Wentian stared at Di Shi. Abruptly, a formless sword might filled the entire space. In that instant, a third eye opened in the center of his brows as the great dream astral soul manifested behind him. Stepping down, the heavens and earth rumbled as the formless sword might transformed into something corporeal, penetrating through Di Shi's body. In that instant, Di Shi groaned in misery as his soaring figure abruptly slowed down. Bang! An unparalleled pressure gushed forth. Qin Wentian endured the terrifying binding force as he stepped out. At this instant, Di Shi felt as though he was no longer on the sacred battle platform, but was in an independent world instead. The world Qin Wentian wanted him to enter was none other than the dream world created by Qin Wentian. Dream. Di Shi's countenance turned ashen as he stared at the great dream's astral soul. He clearly knew that this was a dreamscape, yet he discovered that even with his powerful will, he had no way to break free. Qin Wentian had created this dreamscape for him. You can't fool me. Di Shi howled in rage as the azure rock howled, locking down Qin Wentian. The power of the bloodline in Di Shi's body grew even more violent. The bloodline of the primordial azure rock was wild and powerful, bestowing him with a unique power. There's no need for me to lie to you. This is my dream. A dream that will take your life. Feel it well. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, he soared through the air once more. Numerous silhouettes appeared beside Di Shi. These silhouettes were incomparably gigantic, akin to nightmare demons, sealing off Di Shi's path of escape. Each of them wielded a gigantic devil halberd in their hands as they stabbed towards Di Shi. Everything is an illusion. Di Shi's eyes gleamed with incomparable sharpness. Pucci. A series of crisp sounds rang out as the devil halberds pierced into Di Shi's body. Arr! A howl of agony rang out. Di Shi's countenance instantly turned as white as paper as his entire body convulsed in incomparable pain. Boom! Qin Wentian stepped down once more as another sword strike pierced into Di Shi's heart, causing him to groan in misery as blood seeped out from the corners of his mouth. His countenance grew even paler than before. Such a scene caused the hearts of the spectators to be filled with incomparable shock. What was going on with Di Shi? They didn't see a dream, they only saw Di Shi himself trembling as he coughed out blood. They couldn't feel the pain Di Shi was enduring. They didn't know how realistic and terrifying the dreamscape was. Dreamforce, he's trapped in a dreamscape. Someone exclaimed in shock. The countenances of many from the Supreme Di clan changed. Although Di Shi knew it was a dream, in truth, he was still trapped in a dreamscape. Qin Wentian's dreamscape was simply too tyrannical. Only Qin Wentian himself understood that this wasn't considered tyrannical. Back then, he experienced a life of despair in a single dream. Only such a dreamscape could be considered tyrannical. This technique was the great dream immortal art. It was a dream creation technique he cultivated in the stone monument. In his dreamscape, he could cause people to feel pain and despair. Di Shi, your death date has arrived. Qin Wentian icily spoke to Di Shi, his words causing Di Shi's countenance to turn incredibly unsightly to behold. His death date? That devil halberd continued twisting and turning in his body, wanting him to die in agony. Qin Wentian is so powerful as well. The spectators outside the sacred battle platform were all stunned. For this battle between the 9 of them, each of them had incomparably powerful trump cards. The intensity of the battle would definitely surpass their imaginations. Qin Wentian walked towards Di Shi, His palms glowed with resplendent astral light as a fearsome destructive might gushed forth. Abruptly, his silhouette flickered as he slammed his palm towards Dishur's head. In that instant, an incomparably gigantic star-seizing palm imprint blasted out, capable of crushing the heavens and earth. Go to hell! Dishur abruptly inclined his head, his gaze incomparably resolute. The azure light radiating from him was so bright that no one dared to look at him directly. An azure rock appeared in the air, directly tearing apart Qin Wentian's body. In that instant, a destructive might ravaged Qin Wentian's body. Die for me! Dishur howled in rage. The dreamscape was shattered. This sudden change caused everyone to feel a sense of numbness. Impudent! The human emperor of Yi Qingyuan stepped out as he roared. A resplendent light shone from him. Dishur actually borrowed the power of an external object? Why didn't the sacred battle platform kill him immediately? That isn't an external object. Right now, it has already fused together with Dishur, becoming one with him. In addition, even if it's an external object, it isn't a divine weapon. An expert from the Supreme D clan calmly spoke, his words causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble violently. Only now did they understand that Dishur might have borrowed the power of some mysterious energy to erupt forth with such overwhelming might. No wonder he was so confident. So it turned out that his strength had grown even stronger. Those from the Supreme D clan said that this object had fused together with Dishur. What exactly was it that fused together with Dishur? Was Qin Wentian going to die? Mo Qingqing's hands were tightly clenched as her countenance paled. She slowly walked out, moving forward. The countenances of those from the Battle Sword sect were extremely unsightly to behold. A character like Qin Wentian had appeared in their Battle Sword sect. How could they be willing to see him die in such a battle? Everyone's hearts tightened. The power Dishur unleashed most probably had already reached the level of being unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper. No wonder he dared to challenge the strongest heaven chosen in the royal sacred region, wanting to fight for the title of being unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper. At this moment, on the sacred battle platform, Qin Wentian manifested several incarnations as towering runic light circulated around him. With a roar of rage, his palms slammed downwards, forming a gigantic palm imprint that blotted out the skies. The destructive might of the palm imprint blasted the two of them backwards. Pooh! Qin Wentian and Dishur both coughed out a mouthful of blood. Qin Wentian's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold. His aura fluctuated wildly, indicating that he was heavily injured. He stared at Dishur as he stated, "This power doesn't belong to you. It's already been infused into my body. Now it belongs to me." Dishur's eyes flashed with incomparable savagery as he stared at Qin Wentian. In addition, that basically doesn't belong to the category of divine weapons. Qin Wentian, if I don't die on the sacred battle platform, you are not allowed to exit it. Today you will die for sure. Nobody can stop me from killing you. Do the rules allow this? Qin Wentian stared in the direction of the sacred battle platform. Yes, a voice replied. Seeing that Qin Wentian didn't die even after such an attack, the hearts of the spectators were all filled with shock. Earlier, Qin Wentian's explosive strength was simply too overwhelming. He actually managed to block Dishur's ultimate attack. In that case, medicinal pills shouldn't belong to the category of divine weapons. Qin Wentian faintly spoke. After which, he took out a few jars of medicinal pills, causing the spectators to be dumbfounded when they saw this. Qin Wentian selected a jar and swallowed a few medicinal pills. Very swiftly his aura began to rise, returning to its peak state. After which, under the shocked gazes of the spectators, Qin Wentian took out another jar of medicinal pills and swallowed them, causing his injuries to rapidly recover. Having a fifth-ranked alchemist as a girlfriend is truly powerful. The hearts of the spectators were sweating profusely. Only now did they remember that the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was a fifth-ranked alchemist. Given her relationship with Qin Wentian, how many precious medicinal pills would she give to Qin Wentian? In any case, if they couldn't kill Qin Wentian in a single breath, even if he was heavily injured, he would still be able to recover in a short period of time. But the others wouldn't have such conditions. This battle hasn't ended yet. Earlier, the strength Dishur erupted forth with was too terrifying. What exactly did he mean by blood sacrifice? Just now, it felt like a true supreme primordial beast. The hearts of the spectators trembled. Qin Wentian was truly terrifying and extremely dangerous. Since there's no victor or loser in this battle, and you have recovered using medicinal pills, I shall fight against you next. At this moment, Lu Lan stared at Qin Wentian, her countenance ice-cold. Disher didn't say anything. He was also injured and needed some time to recover. Earlier, he sensed that Qin Wentian was at his peak, erupting forth with extraordinary strength. Qin Wentian also had his own trump cards, and in addition, Qin Wentian had already recovered to his peak state. In that case, it would be best for him to wait until he was at his peak state before killing Qin Wentian. Taking turns to wear him down? Unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper? Just nice. I also want to see how strong the will of a mandate is. Qin Wentian stared at Lu Lan as he arrogantly spoke. The battle intent in his eyes towered up to the heavens. He didn't know what fear was. Since he accepted the challenge today, he wanted to experience how strong the combat prowess of his opponents were. Only under such overwhelming pressure would he be able to push himself to his limits, allowing him to advance a step further. This step, be it one's cultivation base, or one's true intent. On the sacred battle platform, only by directly facing experts who had comprehended a true intent would one be able to sense the power of a true intent in the most profound manner. The stone platforms rotated as Disher's platform retreated, while Lu Lan and Qin Wentian's platforms moved forward, facing each other. Qin Wentian is a battle maniac. At the start, he was handsome and radiant, giving off a sense of tranquility. Who would have thought that he would be so violent when he fights? No wonder he has such accomplishments, the top ranker of the immortal martial realm. What is his limit? Many mused in the hearts of the spectators. Lu Lan's silhouette was already moving towards Qin Wentian. Abruptly, Qin Wentian felt a heaven-annihilating energy enveloping this entire space. It felt as though his body was about to explode into pieces. Unceasing bolts of lightning rained down on his body. Yet Qin Wentian was like an immortal fiend god of war. His gigantic frame stood unmoving in the space between the heavens and earth. Chapter 624. At this moment, Qin Wentian stood there, feeling shock in his heart. The lightning unceasingly blasted onto his body. The destructive might, the tyrannical attacks, the terrifying lightning net, all of these were the will of the mandate of lightning. Once one comprehended the true intent of the mandate, all of these would be infused into one's mandate, causing the might of one's attacks to explosively increase by an unknown amount. Just by standing there, Qin Wentian could already feel the pressure from the lightning. If Qin Wentian was just an ordinary 7th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign, Lu Lan would be able to kill him with ease. At this moment, Qin Wentian only saw Lu Lan's palms clasped together with terrifying arcs of lightning. His entire body was bathed in the tyrannical power of lightning, causing crackling sounds to echo in the air. A terrifying destructive might gushed forth with Lu Lan at the center. At this moment, his body was the center of the lightning. Anyone who got close to him would die. Qin Wentian, who had comprehended the true intent of lightning, even if he didn't focus on defense, his own true intent of lightning would be able to substitute offense for defense. Boom! Lu Lan stepped out, resembling a god of lightning as he walked towards Qin Wentian. His violet eyes flickered with a terrifying killing intent as he blasted out with his palms. Instantly, that sphere of lightning erupted forth as a gigantic lightning palm imprint directly shot towards Qin Wentian. The palm imprint unceasingly radiated lightning, interweaving into a gigantic lightning net that directly coiled around Qin Wentian's body. It was as though the only thing waiting for Qin Wentian was destruction. Is this the power of true intent? The true intent of lightning can actually contain the power of entanglement within? The spectators around the sacred battle platform stared at the battlefield. The intensity of this battle had already far surpassed their imaginations. Qin Wentian's body resembled that of a fiend god as he stepped out. His entire body circulated with resplendent light, as though he was clad in astral armor. Lifting his palms, he blasted out a palm strike in the air. The destructive star-seizing palm imprint contained an incomparably tyrannical destructive might, clashing against the gigantic palm imprint that was radiating boundless lightning. A thunderous sound rang out as Qin Wentian's palm imprint was shattered into pieces. The power of the violet thunder true intent contained a powerful destructive might within it. Although the power Qin Wentian could unleash now was already extremely terrifying, Lu Lan was at the peak of Heavenly Dipper and had comprehended the true intent of lightning. Not only that, he was also a supreme expert from the Violet Thunder sect. How could his attacks be weak? A terrifying light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. He transformed into a million clones and blasted out a star-seizing palm imprint at the same time, destroying everything. However, at this moment, Lu Lan had already appeared above Qin Wentian's head. The true intent of lightning in his body coalesced into a fearsome sword of light as he slashed downwards, so blinding that the spectators couldn't even open their eyes. This sword of light was like a bolt of lightning, slicing apart the skies. Its speed was so fast that no one could react in time. Bang! Astral light erupted as the stellar transposition was activated. Qin Wentian's silhouette transformed into a series of after-images, but the sword of light was still imbued with a blazing heat. Swishing sounds rang out as the sword of light slashed downwards, directly lacerating Qin Wentian's skin. The destructive might of the sword of light left behind a long trail of blood. The power of a true intent could completely break through his defenses, directly injuring Qin Wentian. Is this what it means to be unrivaled in the Heavenly Dipper realm? Those who have comprehended a true intent, and those who haven't are on a completely different level in terms of attack power. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. Earlier, if that sword of light had landed on him, his body would have been directly cleaved into two. Lu Lan didn't give Qin Wentian any chance to recover. He was proficient in the mandate of wind at the perfection boundary. His speed was as fast as lightning as he slashed out yet another sword strike towards Qin Wentian. The tip of the sword of light actually glowed with a terrifying white light, directly arcing through the skies towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian retreated explosively once more. With a thunderous boom, the sword of light directly shattered as the chaotic currents of destruction left behind several wounds on Qin Wentian's body. Is there any use in fleeing? Lu Lan stood in the air, staring at Qin Wentian. The lightning and thunder around him grew even more violent, as though it could destroy everything. Qin Wentian manifested several silhouettes, each of them radiating an extremely powerful sword might. Qin Wentian's original body was the center of this sword might. There was an ancient monument in the immortal martial realm that contained the power of swords. Just like the current Qin Wentian, although there were no swords around him, he seemed to contain a boundless amount of sword might. Boom! The numerous silhouettes all stepped out at the same time. In that instant, resplendent runes of light appeared in the air. Each and every rune transformed into a resplendent sword that contained an extremely powerful killing intent. Lu Lan furrowed his brows. These sword runes were like divine weapons. They actually contained a terrifying destructive might within. This by itself was already a peak-tier 4th-ranked divine inscription, formed from the spiritual refinement method. Its destructive might was exceedingly strong, and earlier during the final moment of his battle against Di Shi, he had unleashed an immense amount of divine energy, causing both sides to suffer heavy injuries. Lu Lan's attacks were extremely powerful. If one wanted to kill him, they had to first defend against his attack, before using another attack to break through his defense. Qin Wentian took another step forward, causing Lu Lan's countenance to change. He felt a surge of sword intent directly penetrating through his body, piercing right into his heart. That sword intent was everywhere. The numerous illusory figures abruptly vanished. Such an innate technique couldn't be maintained forever, but to Qin Wentian, it was already sufficient. Numerous sword imprints appeared in the air. That destructive might, in addition to the sword might radiating from Qin Wentian, was sufficient to cause people's hearts to tremble. Qin Wentian took a third step forward. As this step landed, Lu Lan groaned in misery. He suddenly had a feeling that Qin Wentian had used some sort of mystical ability to connect himself and Qin Wentian as one. It was as though everything here was under Qin Wentian's control. Every step he took was akin to a sharp sword piercing right into his heart. Qin Wentian also had a feeling that this was the true essence of the 7 Annihilations swordplay from the Sword Forest of Grand Xia. For those with great strength, they could transform flowers and leaves into swords to injure their opponents. For truly powerful sword cultivators, they could even control formless qi, transforming them into tangible swords. At this moment, Qin Wentian's perception was pushed to the extreme. Just like the stone monument, with a sword in his heart, the entire world seemed to be under his control. Qin Wentian suddenly thought of something. Although Lulan was proficient in the true intent of lightning, his mandate of swords was only at the perfection boundary. In fact, his attainments in the mandate of swords couldn't even be compared to Qin Wentian. Maybe Lulan had pursued the true intent of lightning too much. If Lulan's mandate of swords also stepped into the true intent level, how strong would the might of his lightning swords be? Most probably, it would be impossible for Qin Wentian to evade it. Lulan also felt a sense of danger. He once again launched an attack towards Qin Wentian. An incomparably resplendent gigantic lightning sword arced through the air, slashing towards Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian merely waved his hands, causing the sword imprints to howl in rage, colliding with the gigantic lightning sword and exploding in a frenzy. Qin Wentian continuously stepped out, causing Lulan to groan unceasingly as his heart pounded. Although he had comprehended the true intent of his mandate, he had no idea how to deal with such an attack. Busy. Lulan rushed out once more as his astral nova appeared. Behind him, a god of lightning manifested, dancing with lightning and thunder, wanting to kill Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's physique was gigantic. He once again executed the phantom clone art, causing numerous gigantic fiend gods to materialize at the same time. After which, he blasted out palm imprints that blasted towards Lulan. Lulan abruptly halted his steps. With a howl of rage, the lightning and thunder around him transformed into countless lightning swords. After which, a gigantic palm imprint the size of a mountain appeared out of nowhere, smashing towards him. Thunderous rumbling sounds echoed unceasingly. Although these attacks were powerful, they had no way to break through the defense of his opponent's true intent of lightning. Qin Wentian continued walking forward, his sword intent penetrating through the hearts of others. When his 7th step landed, Lulan felt as though his heart was being pierced by 10,000 swords as blood flowed from the corners of his mouth. Lulan stepped into the unrivaled realm of Heavenly Dipper and comprehended the true intent of his mandate. However, his methods were still inferior when compared to the era-suppressing genius, Dishur. This was the disparity between era-suppressing geniuses. If Dishur had Lulan's cultivation base and the true intent of his mandate, Qin Wentian would have no way to contend against him. But even so, although Qin Wentian was able to injure Lulan, he wasn't able to kill him. Qin Wentian understood that he was still lacking a little bit. Only by taking that final step would he be able to kill Lulan. They're evenly matched. Even Qin Wentian managed to injure Lulan. The spectators outside sighed in admiration. The two of them continued their violent battle, and very swiftly, both of them were injured. However, neither of them were able to kill the other, and ultimately, they could only give up. Qin Wentian was actually still at a disadvantage. He had many methods and could use innate techniques that were stronger than Lulan, but the amount of energy he expended was also extremely great. His cultivation base was clearly 2 levels lower compared to Lulan, yet he was still able to persist for so long, causing many to sigh in admiration. Qin Wentian understood that in the face of a disparity of 2 levels, if he didn't have the support of 4 Yuanfu, it was basically impossible for him to continue such a high-intensity battle. I'm still not strong enough. This battle is a rare opportunity. I need to grow stronger. Qin Wentian sat on the stone platform and closed his eyes, quietly contemplating the 2 battles earlier. The other 8 participants on the sacred battle platform were all peak-tier, Heavenly Dipper sovereigns of the Royal Sacred Region. Although they were all enemies now, such an opportunity was extremely rare, and he had to grasp it well. At this moment, Dishur's murderous gaze was fixed on him, yet he didn't seem to notice it. With the medicinal pills Mo Qingqing gave him, as long as he didn't die, he would be able to continue battling. the top ranker of the immortal martial realm, Qin Wentian. If he can exit the sacred battle platform alive this time around, he would surely create a piece of history. Many people sighed in admiration. Fighting against Di Shi and Lu Lan with a cultivation base at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, such combat prowess was simply unimaginable. Next, that prince from Radiant Gold ancient country sought out Li Tian and fought a great battle. As one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, Li Tian was actually suppressed because not only was his opponent's strength extraordinary, he had also comprehended the true intent of the Mandate of Metal. Li Tian himself was also pursuing the pinnacle of the Mandate of Metal, and in this aspect he was suppressed by his opponent. However, Li Tian relied on his overwhelming strength and didn't concede. After that, Qin Wentian actually took the initiative to challenge the Prince of Radiant Gold ancient country, and their battle shook the heavens and earth. Qin Wentian's strength was inferior by a notch. The Prince of Radiant Gold ancient country also had no way to kill him. What is he trying to do? Is he using this opportunity to temper his combat prowess? Someone in the crowd saw through Qin Wentian's thoughts, as shock filled their hearts. Chapter 625. On the sacred battle platform, the battles continued unceasingly. In the blink of an eye, night had already descended. Today, Qin Wentian experienced a total of 3 battles. Against Di Shi, against Lu Lan, and against the Crown Prince of Radiant Gold. He seemed to be at a disadvantage in all 3 battles, yet he was still undefeated. After that, Di Shi challenged him a few more times but was rejected by Qin Wentian. He could reject the challenge because right now, the sacred battle platform was a system of 9 battles. Unless everyone had fought against each other, he would have no choice but to accept the challenge. As long as there was someone who hadn't fought against each other, he could choose not to accept the challenge. Qin Wentian didn't accept the challenge because he was focused on comprehending the true intent of lightning, and comprehending the true intent of metal from the Crown Prince of Radiant Gold. Today Li Tian fought against Dongyue Hanjiang. Li Tian had the upper hand, but he had no way to suppress Dongyue Hanjiang and force him to concede. The disparity in strength wasn't too great. Fan Miaoyu fought against Wu Teng from the battle country before. Initially, the spectators thought that Fan Miaoyu, who was at the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper, would have the ability to defeat Wu Teng. However, they discovered that Wu Teng didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Not only that, his axe techniques seemed to be suppressing Fan Miaoyu, causing many to sigh in admiration. This heaven chosen from the heaven-cleaving manor and battle country was truly too powerful, exceeding the expectations of the spectators. Fan Miaoyu fought against the Crown Prince of Radiant Gold as well as Lu Lan. The spectators could sense that this era-suppressing genius was already extremely close to comprehending the true intent of her mandate. She was the same as Qin Wentian, using battle to nurture herself, allowing her strength to evolve. After fighting for an entire day, the spectators discovered that the 9 participants on the sacred battle platform were still there. Although there was a clear disparity in their strength, none of them had admitted defeat. Rest for a night. We will fight again tomorrow when the sun rises. A voice rang out. However, the sacred battle platform was still sealed. As long as the battle hadn't ended, the 9 of them wouldn't be able to leave the sacred battle platform. The spectators all relaxed a little, but their hearts weren't calm at all. In fact, they were so shocked that they felt numb. Father, what do you think of this battle? Yi Lingshuang stood beside the human emperor Yi Qingyun as she asked. Given Yi Qingyun's judgment, he should be able to see the situation more clearly than her. The majority of the 9 of them all have their own thoughts. Some of them clearly had the ability to eliminate their opponents, yet they chose not to do so. This is especially so for Wu Teng and Fan Miaoyu. Both of them aren't simple at all. They probably haven't unleashed their full combat prowess yet. After all, Fan Miaoyu is one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, and her cultivation base is at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. I don't really believe that she hasn't comprehended a true intent of the mandate. As for Wu Teng, he's even more powerful than the rumors say. Yi Qingyun slowly spoke, his words causing Yi Lingshuang's beautiful eyes to freeze. Father, are you saying that Fan Miaoyu intentionally went easy on her opponent? Why would she do that? Even for Fan Miaoyu, it's extremely difficult for her to find 8 opponents of this level. It's extremely difficult even in the entire royal sacred region. Fan Miaoyu might have comprehended a type of true intent, but it's obvious that there's still room for her to grow stronger. Hence, she naturally needs to make use of this level of combat to perfect herself. If I were to encounter an evenly matched opponent, I would also want to battle a few more times, Yi Qingyan replied. In that case, Wentian. Yi Lingshuang was somewhat worried. Wentian is indeed on the weaker side. After all, he's at a disadvantage in terms of cultivation base. But luckily, he has many techniques up his sleeves, and if we talk about the absolute combat prowess he can display, he might even be above Qi Lian, Dongyue Hanjiang or Li Tian. However, Dishir seems to have some unique methods, and Lulan, who has comprehended the true intent of lightning, is also extremely difficult to deal with. But there's no need to worry. Even if they really want to kill Wentian, it wouldn't be so easy. Fan Miaoyu and Wu Teng have the strength to threaten Wentian's life, but they don't have any killing intent towards him. Yi Qingyan analyzed. Yi Lingshuang nodded her head lightly. Everyone was whispering to each other, discussing how the ending of this battle would be. Among the 9 supreme geniuses of the royal sacred region, which one of them had unparalleled combat prowess? On the morning of the second day, as the sun rose, several people on the sacred battle platform opened their eyes. Dongyue Hanjiang was the first to speak. His gaze turned to Wu Teng of War Country as he spoke. Wu Teng, how about I fight against you? Wu Teng opened his eyes and stared at Dongyue Hanjiang as he calmly replied, You are still not my opponent. His tone was extremely calm, yet the confidence within it caused Dongyue Hanjiang to feel as though he was being humiliated. An unsightly expression flickered on his face as he stared at Wu Teng. I really want to see what qualifications you have to be so arrogant. Since you want to exit so badly, let me grant you your wish. Wu Teng stood up as the stone platform the two of them were sitting on began to revolve, moving to the center of the sacred battle platform. Dongyue Hanjiang stepped out. With a lift of his hand, a terrifying suppressive might bore down from the heavens. However, Wu Teng casually raised his hand as an axe appeared in the air, slashing out. In just an instant, Dongyue Hanjiang's attack was directly split into 2, forcibly breaking apart. The true intent of the axe. The axe in Wu Teng's hands seems to have a spirit of its own. Dongyue Hanjiang attacked once more, his astral nova erupting forth as a surge of suppressive might gushed forth. However, Wu Teng still stood there, brandishing the axe in his hands. Although his movements were simple, it gave off a feeling of returning to simplicity. Every time the axe chopped down, everything he struck would be like rotten wood, directly cleaved into 2. Simple, direct, not wasting any energy at all. Although the true intent of the axe Wu Teng comprehended wasn't as magnificent as Lu Lan's true intent of lightning, it was more practical. Dongyue Hanjiang was enraged as he frenziedly attacked. However, Wu Teng didn't seem to be angry at all. He continued to cleave out beams of axe light in an ordinary manner. Although his movements appeared simple, and even appeared to be somewhat slow, in reality, those beams of axe light were all executed in an instant, and were incomparably accurate. The axe light grew stronger and stronger, and at the end, the spectators discovered to their horror that a terrifying gigantic silhouette had appeared in the air. It was as though there was a supreme being wielding a heaven-splitting great axe in its hands. And as Wu Teng's axe slashed down, a crisp sound rang out. Dongyue Hanjiang didn't even have the time to shout the word concede, before one of his arms was chopped off. It was as simple as chopping a tree. I concede. Dongyue Hanjiang's entire body was drenched in cold sweat. Earlier, as long as Wu Teng willed it, that axe strike could have taken his life. How powerful! The hearts of the spectators trembled. Wu Teng had finally made his voice heard. In the first battle, he severed Dongyue Hanjiang's arm, and he even had the strength to kill Dongyue Hanjiang. He was simply too powerful. This was a demon-level character who had been hiding his strength all this while. Although Wu Teng's age was on the older side, he was still a late bloomer. Such combat prowess was truly terrifying. True intent of mandates. Perhaps, it's a type of returning to one's natural state. Qin Wentian mused. Wu Teng's axe light seemed to have awakened him. Before this, he had sensed Lu Lan's true intent of lightning and metal. His attacks were simply too magnificent. The true intent of lightning contained all sorts of mandates, but why was it that Lu Lan's attacks were inferior to Wu Teng's? This was similar to two people who had comprehended the same mandate. Their comprehension would be different, and the strength of their mandates would also be different. Wu Teng's comprehension towards the true intent of mandates was slightly deeper. Qin Wentian thought of the sword comprehension grass hut. From the 15th to the 21st sword strike, the true intent of these 7 swords was truly returning to one's natural state. When the true intent of wind was present, one wouldn't be able to see the mandate of wind within the swords. The cultivation level of the sword comprehension grass hut was even higher than Wu Teng's cultivation level. As for Lu Lan and the prince from Radiant Gold, they should belong to the weakest cultivation level. When they used their true intent, even the mandates contained within were extremely clear and distinct. It was extremely easy to see through them. At this moment, Qin Wentian suddenly had a flash of comprehension. After yesterday's battle, he couldn't find an answer no matter how hard he thought about it. But now he was suddenly enlightened. Staring at Wu Teng's axe light, he thought back to the sword comprehension grass hut. However, this flash of comprehension didn't mean that he had truly comprehended his own mandate. It still depended on his comprehension ability. Being able to gain enlightenment from observing the battle of others, this indicated that Qin Wentian's comprehension ability was already extremely high. After all, there were countless experts from the various major powers who were proficient in true intent. But who could say that they would be able to gain enlightenment just by observing their true intent? Even if they did, who could guarantee that they would be able to comprehend their own true intent? Everything depended on the individual. At this moment, it all depended on Qin Wentian himself. He wanted to see if he could use this flash of comprehension to break through to the next level. Qin Wentian, why are you still not coming out to die? Di Shi roared at Qin Wentian after seeing Wu Teng retreating after defeating Dongyue Hanjiang. Qin Wentian closed his eyes, ignoring Di Shi. Everyone has already fought a round. You won't be able to escape even if you want to. Even if you don't die, you will still die. Di Shi spoke again. Ooh. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. Di Shi's voice was like a thunderclap, directly blasting into his mind. This made him understand that it was impossible for him to cultivate in peace. Di Shi wanted his life so badly. Opening his eyes, Qin Wentian's eyes flickered with a dazzling light. Standing up, the power of his blood thrummed as his body expanded in size. A resplendent luster circulated around him, as the Yuanfu in his body also started to rumble. Boom! From Di Shi's body, a terrifying aura capable of annihilating the heavens and earth abruptly erupted forth. Behind him, the silhouette of a primordial azure rock appeared. That wasn't an astral soul, nor was it an astral nova. Di Shi's entire body shone with a towering azure light, as numerous runic lights flickered, so resplendent. A raging wind gusted by as Di Shi's silhouette directly vanished. The shadow of the azure rock howled in rage as a terrifying energy directly bound Qin Wentian's body. The spectators saw numerous runic lights appearing around Qin Wentian, each of them resembling an azure rock, grabbing hold of Qin Wentian's body. You still want to live? Di Shi roared. Stretching out his palms, the terrifying runic lights directly exploded on Qin Wentian's body. Qin Wentian countered with a fearsome attack, yet his attack was directly nullified. The runic lights exploded on his body, instantly ripping open a bloody wound, wanting to tear his body apart as fresh blood flowed out. Borrowing the power of the azure rock, Qin Wentian mumbled. Di Shi must have used some sort of secret technique, causing his body to undergo a transformation, allowing him to borrow the power of the azure rock. Power, the omnipresent power, Qin Wentian murmured. Di Shi floated in the air, staring down at him with a murderous look in his eyes. I will kill you slowly, allowing you to enjoy the process. Di Shi's countenance was extremely malevolent. He actually needed to use such a trump card before he could kill Qin Wentian. Another attack blasted out. Resplendent treasured light flashed, resembling a towering azure rock that directly shot towards Qin Wentian. Runic lights illuminated the skies as the attack instantly descended. Qin Wentian's body seemed to have no aura at all. He lifted his palms and blasted out with them. Boom! An incomparably deafening explosion rang out. This time around, although Di Shi's attack managed to force Qin Wentian back, it didn't have the same effect as earlier. Not only that, Qin Wentian's body was no longer restricted. He floated in the air, staring at Di Shi with a strange expression in his eyes. Di Shi frowned, but an instant later, his killing intent flared up once again, struggling on the brink of death. As the sound of his voice faded, a formless energy gushed forth. He abruptly felt a terrifying force acting on his body, after which, Qin Wentian lifted his palms and blasted out. Di Shi's attack had only just been launched when he felt a mountain-toppling and sea-overturning force pressing down on him. With a thunderous boom, his attack was directly shattered, and after which, that towering might slammed into his body. Bang! Di Shi's body was directly forced backwards as he groaned in misery. An expression of astonishment appeared on his face as he stared at Qin Wentian, only to see that Qin Wentian's eyes were still flickering with a strange emotion. The way Qin Wentian looked at him seemed to be filled with a hint of mockery. Chapter 626. This strike caused Di Shi to sober up a little. Staring at the mocking expression on Qin Wentian's face, he couldn't help but feel astonished. Qin Wentian had comprehended a true intent? Very swiftly, Di Shi's countenance turned malevolent. A raging wind howled as a baleful aura towered up into the skies. He had to kill Qin Wentian before Qin Wentian could familiarize himself with the true intent of his mandate. Bzz. A hurricane gusted up on the sacred battle platform as the azure light transformed into an incomparably fearsome azure rocks, tearing towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian stepped out. This time around, his steps were filled with even more power, causing the space around him to tremble. His body seemed to be even more agile than before. This was a sign that his control over his strength had become even more perfect. Di Shi, on the other hand, could feel a heavy and terrifying pressure bearing down on him. Qin Wentian blasted out a sky-rending palm imprint that could shatter Di Shi's attack head-on. True intent. Although I know that it's returning to one's original state, my proficiency in using true intent can't be compared to Wu Teng's. Knowing is one thing, but using it myself is another. Qin Wentian's heart was as clear as a mirror. He unceasingly clashed with Di Shi in the air, unleashing powerful attacks, causing violent shockwaves to engulf the heavens and earth. While Qin Wentian was fighting, he was also familiarizing himself with the feeling of the true intent of his mandate. After a few more moments, Qin Wentian's attacks were no longer as ferocious as before. However, he was able to deal with Di Shi with greater ease. After a single clash, the two of them separated. Di Shi's countenance had already turned incomparably malevolent. Qin Wentian stretched out his hands as a mortal-ranked ancient halberd appeared in his hands. Even if he didn't borrow divine weapons, he would still be able to borrow ordinary weapons. The blood in Qin Wentian's body was akin to that of a fiend celestial. Wielding the ancient halberd in his hand, he exuded a tyrannical aura. A terrifying light circulated within the ancient halberd. Di Shi once again launched an attack towards Qin Wentian. The talons of an azure rock tore apart the heavens and earth, exuding a towering might. However, before the talons fully erupted, the ancient halberd in Qin Wentian's hands abruptly exploded outwards, colliding with the talons. With a thunderous boom, the talons were directly shattered into pieces. Di Shi's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold. He revolved around Qin Wentian with extreme speed as resplendent light flashed unceasingly. However, Qin Wentian simply stood there with his eyes closed. He struck out with his ancient halberd again and again, and no matter how fast Di Shi's attacks were, Qin Wentian could easily neutralize them. Qin Wentian has comprehended a true intent of his mandate. Comprehending a true intent at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. How monstrous. Is he using Di Shi to temper his own true intent? Although Di Shi seems to have the initiative, he can't threaten Qin Wentian at all. Qin Wentian is completely using the true intent of his mandate to attack. Many people were shocked. Even those ascendants of the older generation were stunned. Qin Wentian's comprehension ability was too terrifying. In the blink of an eye, he had already surpassed the initial level of his true intent, allowing it to mature. Di Shi's countenance turned malevolent as he frenziedly attacked. However, Qin Wentian didn't seem to be angered at all. He was leisurely and unhurriedly replying to his attacks, giving Di Shi the feeling that Qin Wentian was using him as a practice target. This caused Di Shi to feel a sense of humiliation, a naked humiliation. In truth, although Qin Wentian was improving, he wasn't as strong as what everyone imagined. Right now, when he was using the true intent of his mandate, he had yet to fuse it into his other attacks. It was clearly unrealistic to say that he could directly suppress Di Shi the moment he comprehended it. But as he continued to improve, he discovered that he was getting more and more proficient at using it. True intent. Returning to one's natural state. Following one's heart's desire. Absolute control. Qin Wentian's perception of true intent grew stronger and stronger. The true intent of a mandate was actually a kind of control. Following one's heart's desire. Absolute control. For example, Wu Teng's true intent of axe. When he chopped down with his axe, it was as though his opponent was a block of wood. Qin Wentian's true intent of force was the application of energy. This kind of control should be even stronger than before. After comprehending the will of my mandate, my perception seems to have grown even more powerful. This is especially so for my perception of force. It's like I can easily control the energy in my surroundings, and can sense every single strand of energy from my opponent's innate techniques. Qin Wentian continued to familiarize himself with this kind of control. The reason why he could so easily neutralize Di Shi's attacks was because his perception had grown stronger. Just like at this moment, when Qin Wentian's ancient halberd collided with his opponent's palm imprint, he could sense every single strand of energy from his opponent's palm imprint. After which, he channeled his own energy into it, shattering the palm imprint with ease. Qin Wentian believed that when Wu Teng chopped down with his axe, Qin Wentian felt the same way as well. Di Shi finally halted his attacks. His body floated in the air as he coldly stared at Qin Wentian. He couldn't continue this battle any longer. He could already sense that Qin Wentian's control over the true intent of his mandate was growing stronger and stronger. Didn't you want to kill me? Qin Wentian stared at Di Shi as he asked. Di Shi's countenance turned ashen as he icily replied, "Truce." Truce? Qin Wentian froze for a moment before a strange expression appeared on his face. You want to fight just because you say so? You want a truce now? Wasn't this Di Shi a little too amusing? What do you want? Di Shi's voice was as cold as ice. Qin Wentian laughed. He didn't reply. Wielding his ancient halberd, he took a few steps towards Di Shi. The resplendent light around him circulated frenziedly as his Yuanfu rumbled. A layer of astral armor appeared on Qin Wentian's body, circulating with runic light. At this moment, Qin Wentian truly resembled a fiend god, unexcelled in the world. Busy. Numerous silhouettes of Qin Wentian appeared at the same time. This was none other than the illusionary clone art. These silhouettes all stepped out at the same time, stomping on Di Shi's heart. I want to take your life. Qin Wentian coldly spoke. Taking another step out, the numerous silhouettes all rushed out at the same time, directly appearing in front of Di Shi. Numerous ancient halberds blasted out, each and every one of them containing the power to destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. That power was unleashed to the extreme as a stifling pressure gushed towards Di Shi. A terrifying blood-colored light radiated from Di Shi's body as the aura of an ancient azure rock gushed forth from him. After which, a true azure rock blasted out, bringing with it a blazing hot runic light as well as an indomitable force. This was an attack of despair. Countless ancient halberds directly pierced into the body of the azure rock, causing its body to explode and disintegrate. At this moment, Di Shi's body also transformed into numerous clones. With an explosive roar, he was like the king of all ferocious birds. Countless ferocious birds surrounded him, protecting him from the incoming attacks. At the same time, Di Shi retreated, wanting to increase the distance between him and Qin Wentian. Not good. Disher abruptly felt an overwhelming destructive energy gushing towards him. He used everything he had to defend, only to see the third eye of Qin Wentian staring at him. At this moment, a silhouette of Qin Wentian also appeared behind Disher, with an ancient halberd in his hands, wanting to pierce into his body. This is impossible. Disher's vision suddenly blurred. He discovered that his surroundings were filled with the silhouettes of Qin Wentian. Who was the real one? Who was the fake one? At this moment, his state of mind was in chaos as he fell into Qin Wentian's dreamscape. He no longer had the ability to differentiate between reality and illusion. Qi. An ancient halberd directly pierced through the center of Disher's brows. The ancient halberd that appeared out of the void was aimed directly at Disher. While Disher was trying to differentiate the real from the fake, the true killing blow was actually hidden in the void. At the instant the ancient halberd pierced into the center of Disher's brows, the entirety of his brain was completely destroyed. Disher's thoughts instantly ceased as he died on the spot. The other spectators on the sacred battle platform felt their hearts pounding violently when they saw this scene. Staring at the silhouette of Disher, they didn't dare to believe their own eyes. Although the two of them had already set the rule that only one of them could walk out of here alive, they still didn't dare to believe that Disher had truly died here. Disher's death was something they didn't dare to believe. Not only for them, the spectators outside felt the same way as well. Who were these two? One was a young man whose name shook the entire royal sacred region, the top ranker of the immortal martial realm. The halo of light radiating from him was comparable to Gu Lufeng back then. And the other was Disher, one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. Although they knew that one of them would die, the impact it brought to them was too great, causing the spectators outside the sacred battle platform to fall silent. The gazes of everyone were focused on Qin Wentian. That devilishly handsome young man had shocked the world with a single feat, using his magnificence to rise up in the royal sacred region, becoming famous in the immortal martial realm. If the immortal martial realm was a test of one's potential, then today, he had slain Disher in front of everyone on the sacred battle platform. Nobody could deny that his rise was already unstoppable. Even the 8 era-suppressing geniuses had no way to obstruct his footsteps. This time around, Disher came precisely for the sake of killing Qin Wentian. He had even prepared a powerful trump card for himself. Yet he became the first one to die. This seemed to prove Qin Wentian's words. Every time they exchanged blows, Disher would always be as arrogant as ever, but the one who would suffer in the end would always be him. This time around, he finally lost his life. As one of the era-suppressing geniuses, after a short period of glory in the royal sacred region, another even more outstanding demon-level character stepped on his corpse, continuing to advance forward. In this generation, Qin Wentian became the first to kill an era-suppressing genius. This indicated that Qin Wentian was even more outstanding compared to the era-suppressing geniuses. He had the possibility to become the only one among the younger generation. As one of the 7 great clans, the eyes of the Supreme D clan at this moment were all bloodshot as their killing intent soared up into the sky. The twin geniuses of the Supreme D clan had both died in the hands of a single person. Disher had died. Even now, they still had no way to accept this cruel reality. Not far away from the Supreme D clan were those from the Divine Weapon Academy. Moon, Xinjing and the rest all felt their hearts pounding wildly as they stared at that magnificent silhouette. He had actually killed Disher. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.